is the one which is coordinating the AI for IA International Conference. And this conference has been held, actually started in 2021 during the peak COVID period. And it started as a purely online international conference. As you are all aware that during COVID, we could not meet in situ like the way we are meeting today. So the AI for IA conference has been running for the last 4 years. And this year, for the first time, we decided to hold several satellite events all over the world. So you are the first to meet in situ. And also, the AI for IA conference is usually held in sync with the International Day for Universal Access to Information. So Botswana event taking place from the 9th is actually one of the first events globally. So first of all, congratulations for being the first to meet in situ in this international satellite events. Yeah, so there are several other satellite events which are being held or will be held. Apart from Botswana, this event is for the Southern African region, but of course we have panelists coming all the way from East Africa. Thank you so much, Caleb, for joining us. Yeah, Caleb is from Kenya, so he's joining us in Southern Africa, but there are other satellite events which are being held in Jamaica, China, India, Canada. There's one in Europe, Latin America, and there'll be another one in South Africa as well. But this one is the regional event for Southern Africa. So how is the conference working? Basically, it's experts and those who are interested in AI, artificial intelligence for information accessibility. They submit their interest, they submit abstracts of what they want to speak. And then they also record videos, and those videos are uploaded online. So if you go to the website, you'll see there's a whole lot of videos and speakers going back to the last 5 years. I mentioned about the IFAB working group, but we do this with partners. We are not doing it alone. And for the last 5 years, we have been working with Yeah, so for the last 5 years, we've been working with the University of Alberta in Canada, the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, but also this conference has been held under the auspices of 2 UNESCO regional offices, which is the UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa and the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, which is based in Jamaica. So you can see it's a conference that has been growing its wings as we move on. And what are the future plans? As of last year, we had planned to hold an international, the international conference in situ, and it was supposed to be in Africa. Unfortunately, International Day for Universal Access to Information is also happening in Africa. Maybe fortunately, let me not say unfortunately. So it was not possible to have the 2 events at the same time because they're usually held at the same time. And no wonder we have ended up having the regional event for Southern Africa here in Botswana. But originally, this was planned to be an international event. So all the speakers from all over the world were supposed to come to Botswana this year if we were to continue with that trajectory. So, but going forward, um, we are still in consideration to have the international event in situ. And we are here in Gaborone with our ears open to hear if there are any pledges from any country. I can see my brother Omar is from Somalia. I'm not sure if Somalia is willing to host the next one. Why, Omar? Yeah, so that's the background of the AI for IA International Conference. So we really want to thank you for joining us today for this international conference, and we look forward to your contributions and participation to make sure that this event, which is being held for the first time, will be a success. So a warm welcome once again. Thank you so much. So let's hold on for a few minutes and see. I think the Secretary General is about to arrive and the Permanent Secretary. Then we will start our proceedings. Thank you so much.
show the video. How do we do that? And then it doesn't change. You see, it doesn't change. They don't see it. So the
Yeah, that's fine. There we go. One. Good afternoon, everybody. Please accept my sincere apology for the late start to our program this afternoon. There are some issues that are of national importance that have come up that have affected us a little bit. Nonetheless, we are here now, and apologies once again. Jonathan Gandari, Chief Director, Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services from Zimbabwe. The Deputy Secretary General of the International Federation of Journalists, Mr. Timothy Dawson. The Africa Director at the Federation of Journalists, Pa Luis Tomasi. The President of the Federation of African Journalists, FAJ, Omar Farouk Osman. President of the Botswana Media and Allied Workers Union, Re Philemon Meso. UNESCO Advisor for Communication and Information, Alamin Yusuf. UNESCO Expert in Communication and Information, Alton Grizzle, who has joined us from UNESCO headquarters in Paris. Distinguished officials from the Botswana government, captains of industry here present, esteemed international and local delegates, our virtual as well as in situ participants, a very good afternoon and welcome. It is on behalf of the Botswana National Commission for UNESCO that I convey a very warm welcome to you all to Gaborone, Botswana, as well as to this significant training of trainers workshop and the Artificial Intelligence for Information Accessibility panel discussion. We are delighted to host this gathering, and we welcome delegates to a week filled with insightful meetings, networking opportunities, and social events, all aimed at fostering dialogue on artificial intelligence, information accessibility, and the media's critical role in advocating for media and information literacy among professionals and the broader public. This event marks a milestone as we convene the first in situ panel for AI for IA, and we are proud to have such a large and diverse panel of experts with us. We have intentionally structured this as an interactive conversation-style panel to ensure that no voice is left behind and that everyone has the opportunity to engage and contribute meaningfully to these discussions. We believe this inclusive approach is key to advancing our understanding and collective action on AI and information accessibility. Your presence here signifies a shared commitment to addressing the pressing challenges and opportunities that AI presents, particularly in the context of information accessibility and literacy. We look forward to fruitful discussions and collaborations as we explore how AI can be leveraged to benefit all members of society and ensure that no one is left behind in the digital age. Once again, welcome, and I wish you a productive and engaging week ahead. I thank you.
Esteemed ladies and gentlemen, I greet you warmly from Jamaica in your various capacities. We gather at a time when artificial intelligence joins the pantheon of great human inventions that permanently reshape society. The invention of painting, photography, film, etc., is about humans attempting to replicate ourselves and what we observe and experience. Generative artificial intelligence helps us to do the same. In that sense, it is like old wine in a new bottle, except that the scale and scope of its impact are unprecedented. Anyone can now make fake images, videos, and sound at the speed of thought, and so real that we default to positions of disbelief and distrust in what our eyes have seen and ears have heard. What does it portend for society when we question the truth of a palpable and visceral experience with child, our child's teacher, our doctor, lawyer, or spouse, when critical information is received from emergency services, such as an immediate evacuation order, or a determinative statement made by a political aspirant on the eve of an election, or when there is breaking news from a trusted news source. If untruth and disbelief scale to a point where we normalize fiction, fraud, and distrust, society becomes dysfunctional and a mere chaos. Hence, exhortations such as that of the late Professor Stephen Hawking, that AI poses an existential threat to humanity. But a threat does not equate to an inevitable outcome. Neither is our choice a binary one, utopian AI hype or crippling AI dystopia. The more we all know about AI, the more we can actively shape its development and use it for the good of society. For this to happen, there must be openness, inclusivity, and enlightening access. People of all walks of life who will be or are being affected by AI should have a say about it. That is the purpose of today's discussion. It is one of 8 from around the world, culminating on September 28th, when we meet on the Gaptown platform for the flagship AI for IA virtual conference with over 68 speakers. All of this information is being made available as part of our collective task to eliminate information asymmetry and write instead, hopefully, a story about human flourishing. Let me conclude by thanking members of the UNESCO IPAC Working Group on Information Accessibility small band of AI for IA conference organizers from India, Jamaica, UK, Canada, USA, Chile, Ukraine, Germany, China, South Africa, and Botswana, supported by the UNESCO ICA Secretariat in Paris, the UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa, the UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, the Broadcasting Commission of Jamaica, University of Alberta in Canada, and the Alberta Machine Intelligence Institute. I also join in extending our gratitude to the local organizers and partners of today's satellite panel. See you on the Gathon platform on Saturday, September 28th. Thank you. Megan, big up on yourself.
Yeah, that was a really brilliant introduction. We have two panels today. So we'll start with the first panel. And for that, I'd like to call upon Dr. Tabari Moyo to come forward. Please, take a seat. Dr. Macaulay, I hope he's around. We also have Farouk, Omar Farouk. And we have Professor Erika online. I hope Professor Erika is online. She has already joined us. Is she? Yeah. So, colleagues, let's start with Omar. Please, can you tell us three things that the audience doesn't know about you?
Thank you very much, Alameen, and thanks for inviting us. And before I go on to introduce myself, I wanted to really recognize UNESCO Regional Office for Southern Africa for organizing these in-person discussions. Because from where we come from, with the journalist movement, within the International Federation of Journalists, the discussions on the artificial intelligence is very strong and very lively. But being a global organization within the IOJ, we feel that when I say Africans, we are left out in the debate. And the debate is mostly strongly coming from Europe, North America, and to a large extent Asia Pacific, when it comes to the discussions of artificial intelligence and journalism. So I really wanted to recognize this for UNESCO, especially the Regional Office for Southern Africa, for spearheading for we in the continent of Africa to come together to have discussions such as like this. Second, I want to thank the UNESCO National Commission for Botswana for facilitating these important discussions. This will be a good start, it will not be the end, it will go all across the continent. Like Alamin said, my name is Omar Faruk. I come from Somalia. I'm a journalist and a trade unionist. What people don't know that I'm a militant and a human, and I believe in environmental journalists have been having the most challenges in terms of the safety, in terms of the well-being. But then I felt that that has made us as well much more stronger, that we have a voice as journalists and as journalists.
Thank you. You can keep the mic. That's yours already. Yeah, now, Dr. Sabani, please, could you tell us three things that the audience doesn't know about, especially in relation to the field of artificial intelligence and information accessibility?
Thank you very much, and also to observe the protocols established. Firstly, I did not know that Golden Green was about to pop out of the screen in conclusion. He scared me. Secondly, I'm married to one person, one woman, but many do not know that. Thirdly, I I participated in the global summit on media and AI, which was established in 2023, chaired by Maria Alexa 2021, and obviously it's concluded our way in November 2023, which is now out for you to engage on and contribute in shaping the conversations we are in. Lastly, I think many do not appreciate that I'm a martial artist. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I didn't know about that. Yeah, anyway, we can talk later about it. Dr. Mutone, sorry, maybe we'll go first to Professor Erica. Professor Erica, a warm welcome to the AI for RNA panel. Please, can you tell the audience at least three things that the audience doesn't know about you, especially in relation to your work in artificial intelligence and information accessibility? Go ahead.
Hi, good afternoon. I hope I'm audible. Can
You're very audible.
Okay, great. I'm not hearing everything that is happening in the room. I'm sorry, the audio is not great on my side. But I understood that you would like me to introduce myself.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having me as part of this panel. My name is Erica Kramer Mbula. I am a professor of economics based at the University of Johannesburg, where I lead a research chair, which works as a research unit on transformative innovation, the fourth industrial revolution, and sustainable development. Within our unit, our main concern is the identification and support of the types of innovation that lead to more inclusive and sustainable development. So that is what we refer to as transformative innovation. And we very much pay attention to not only the technology itself, but how technology relates to society. And we understand that it is contextual, and it will take a different shape, and there would be different impacts of different technologies in different societies. So we very much look at the African context and how key technologies, such as artificial intelligence, is unfolding, and what are the policy implications of supporting AI so it leads to inclusive and sustainable development.
Okay.
Perhaps I will stop.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, thank you so much, Prof. Is Nashinundo around? There you are. Please join us. Yes. Yes, now, Dr. Mutone, can you introduce yourself, please? Good afternoon, everybody. Good morning, wherever others may be. My name is Christopher Mutone. For me, let me also think that in terms of the different things that you do not know is implications from existing new continents, being Africa, Asia, and the Americas, all starting with AIDS, and in which, looking at those countries, artificial intelligence is doing very, very well, and I have the privilege of being able to intervene with different experts from all those areas. And thirdly, having another privileged position in which, as the digital transformation coordinator in Botswana, I am able to infuse and motivate the development and adoption of AI into services as they are being developed and are just working on individual plans in which we are making AI to feature to benefit in that. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Mokoli. National.
Yes. I think I will second the protocol already observed and also recognize the role of UNESCO in driving conversation and engagement on AI in the sub-Saharan African region, or particularly the Southern African region. Do I follow the road of asking three things about me?
Yes.
Well,
it can be two, it can be three, but yeah, so is good.
All right. I am a mother of four, and of course, I served in the Namibia 4IR Presidential Task Force that our former president has appointed 2 years ago, 3 years ago. That's the other role. I teach at the university, and I think all of those are correct. My interest in technology, or particularly in artificial intelligence, is, I think, aligned with what Mula was mentioning, really on technology in society that is easily contextualized. And my research for this year was particularly interested in AI and the use of elections through the media. We are aware, for instance, that there's election in Botswana next month, I want to believe. So is in Namibia and a number of other countries. And trends have been showing how artificial intelligence is being used not only by the electoral management bodies, but also the media and society at large.
Okay, that's very interesting. I understand that you did conduct a study of African media councils attempts to govern generative AI during the year of democracy. So can you tell us what was the study all about and what were its findings?
Correct, yes. So as you know, about 19 African countries are going towards elections this year. I've mentioned some of them. And I think looking at the media in particular, we're really interrogating how the media councils are guiding newsrooms, or the media in particular, in terms of the usage of artificial intelligence. We know that artificial intelligence is being used for detection and monitoring of AI-powered tools, sentiment analysis, use of image and videos for forensic software, but also for reverse image search engines, content verification, but also through collaborative networks and initiatives. That's the top level, and I think many of the newsrooms have integrated many of those tools. What is missing, or what we found in particular, is that media councils in general are neither here or nor there in terms of how those tools must be implemented within newsrooms. At this point, it looks like newsrooms are adopting tools as they are, using for their own use, but there is no particular regulations, there is no framework that is built by state media councils. We looked at South Africa, for instance. We looked in Kenya, where there is number of initiatives related to regulations on artificial intelligence in the newsroom. But we also looked at some newsrooms in West Africa, particularly in Ghana. What we also see is trends related to some media organizations, such as the Media Monitoring Africa in South Africa, that is training newsrooms on particular use of artificial intelligence. Once again, those are own approaches or industry approaches, but there is no standard regulations that is developed not by the African Union, but we know that many of the bodies, such as the African Union or even the UNESCO and the African Union, are attempting to implement this.
Okay, Dr. Tabani, I think you were involved or participated in the development of a framework for the media. Is that related to what international was talking about? Tell us a little bit about it.
Thank you very much. I was always thinking that I need to congratulate Dr. Mpone on the gazetting of the access to information bill. Our research chapter, ourselves worked together officially to engage on the content. I think it's a positive step as we are in the month of celebrating access to information and then problematizing it with the AI. We did a research inside Southern Africa on the status of AI regulation. And so I think we found some dilemmas which requires careful innovation by the industry, but also the sense of responsible use of the same technology. In that research, we also realized that there was a learning gap in terms of the framework. All the countries are at different stages, but what was common was that glaring realization that mostly, like in most cases, practice is ahead of regulation, and we are struggling to do the data. And that it presents some AI ethical dilemmas in terms of how do we proceed in terms of the current architecture of laws and practices within that but also we were encouraged with the then steps that were guiding us, specifically the UNESCO AI ethics on AI framework, which was developed by UNESCO, which then fed or being understood together with the work we were doing, also fed into the AU framework on AI development. But what is glaring is that the member states are at different stages, and 4 key issues emerged that we thought were key. That the issue of AI would be quite a problem if you attempt to eat in smaller groups. That is to, if Africa is to have a position on the table, we need it at AU level. So that we establish muscle as the African community dealing with issues around digital reality and pushing the AI conversation forward. But 4 key things happened in terms of our observations. The issue of ethical guidelines and frameworks, very much important. And this is the center stage in terms of how we are going to push forward. Most of the countries we realize they've come up with cyber security regulation, which was not aware of the new developments in terms of AI, and quite weak in terms of data security and privacy. That's the second issue, data security and privacy. And how it is actually an issue about journalism and access to information. We are talking about journalism and access to information, issues of whistleblower protection, issues of sources being protected and how they become vulnerable based on regulation. The 4th issue which we found from that research were issues to do with biases and the need for fairness. AI is a data-hungry creature, and there are no standards in terms of how we can aggregate the indigenous data within the Southern African community, which makes it difficult to teach it on how to respond to it. So you realize that the indigenous knowledge system will be compromised if we do not come up with standards in our framework that allows for how to deal with data that the algorithms in terms of or indigenous knowledge systems. The last thing was that there was still limited level of literacy and awareness building. Where everyone is in a limb of AI, but the detail in terms of awareness and capacity building is still elusive. And as the UN approach, our thinking is that the multi-stakeholderism approach for AI development, which is encompasses holistic and includes every stakeholder is critical. These are some of the main observations.
Thank you so much. I heard you talking about we cannot eat a smaller group. Dr. Shilongo was talking about frameworks, which leads me to think about ecosystems. The discussion which I think Professor Erika is bringing to the table. So, Professor Erika, you heard Dr. Shilongo and Dr. Tabani talking about the need for ecosystems. I think they didn't speak loudly about it, but you could hear that they're talking about ecosystems. So, how can we build AI ecosystems that drive transformative change in Africa? Over to you.
Great, thank you for that question. And I think some of the points that I will make connect very well with the previous submissions here. So I think when we look at what is happening in the continent, we can see that the magnitude and the scale is at and the pace of how much we are making the most of the potential that AI poses to the society and the different economies in the African continent. Is at a different scale, right? We can see that there's much more that can be done, but still AI is unfolding in quite unique ways, and the adoption of AI is actually growing very rapidly. A report from last year identified about 2,500 companies across Africa specializing in AI in a range of sectors: health, wellness, farming, insurance, and so on. By today, that was last year. By today, I'm sure that the number is much larger. And there seems to be a new wave of innovation, right? With startups particularly starting to leverage AI to address local challenges. And there's very interesting examples from apps that scan plant leaves to identify pests and diseases, to precision irrigation solutions that are based on AI, to all sorts of different types of algorithms that are helping identify, for instance, poverty hotspots. So putting AI at the service of solving local challenges. And this is primarily being done by African startups. And there are many examples like this. Social enterprises are using AI to scale up their operations. So I think there's a very exciting activity happening there in this bustling sort of ecosystem where you have your IBMs, your Googles, your Microsofts, the big players are still playing a substantial role. But I think this growing presence of grassroots startups developing sort of ethical AI and developing local talent and addressing local challenges, it's a space that we need to be looking at. So startups and private sector is moving ahead, but there are limits to what they can do without a fully conducive ecosystem around them, supporting the activities, providing incentives, bringing in investment, providing the infrastructure and the skills that are needed to really grow that ecosystem, right? And I think this is what it means that it's important to acquire this systems approach to developing the AI and the potential of what is happening in the continent, because technology and what is happening in the private sector doesn't exist on its own, and there are limits to what can be done without a conducive technology infrastructure, without an adequate regulatory framework, without skills and human capital that help these startups grow and acquire the sort of the talent that is needed, and supportive policies that encourage innovation and ethical practices in that way. So I think that's what I mean about building an ecosystem, which requires not only a top-down approach to coming up with new regulations and new policies that are needed, but really investing in that collaboration across multiple sectors and stakeholders, including government, academia, industry, civil society. All of that is needed to ensure that that AI solutions are developed and deployed in ways that are socially beneficial, economically viable, and culturally appropriate. Now, there's a lot of words there, and that is much easier said than done. And finding the strategic spaces in which that can be done is essential. But let me stop there.
Thank you so much, Professor Eric. So now we've heard about the need for collaboration, we've heard about frameworks, So, Dr. Mokole, you're the acting digital transformation coordinator. Now, talking about framework, coordination, the need to work together, etc. What can you tell us about the digital transformation and artificial intelligence transformation of the community, especially the people to Botswana? Thank you. First of all, I think it's key for the audience to understand that when we are talking accessibility in terms of AI, we need to be able to see how we deploy AI solutions to ensure that information is available to everyone, irrespective of their conditions, be it visual impairment, be it the level of literacy or other issues, also in terms of the devices that they are using. So, in terms of the digital transformation coordination that we are doing, we have already identified a number of areas where we want AI to come into place to facilitate information accessibility. One of the key projects that we are working on is on conceptualizing what we call the language translation services, in which within the portal that we are developing for Botswana, we would like to ensure that that portal is able to be able to respond within the local dialects of the people who are accessing it, such that we minimize the chances of, for example, we realize that the way the services are mostly structured, they are structured from the government perspective in terms of what we understand. They are using things like marriage bounds. And those things are very, when you talk to a local person, they don't really have any idea what that means. But in fact, it just actually means registration intention for them. And with the intention of bringing in AI solutions behind the portal, that will then allow us to deploy chatbots as well as digital assistants, which could create what we call a citizen-centric approach within the platform. And such that you are able to just ask what you are looking for as a citizen. And then the AI behind will then do the complex translation as well as identifying the key sources of information we are looking for. Additionally, we are also looking in terms of infusing AI solutions within the land parcel management, because that is also another area where we feel that the information around those is not as good as we are supposed to. And I believe my brother side has just indicated that AI is a super handy thing. We also need to demystify that AI is not a thing that can just come out of the closet and jump into us. It is actually built on the algorithms that we train in the way we live, and then they are able to generate some level of intelligence, not to the level of human being, but very, very accurate. Remember, AI does not have emotions like you and me. So even when factoring some of those things, they still need to have a human intervention. So in the land administration areas, we are looking to infuse that so that it's able to help us to navigate and harvest and consolidate the tons and tons of land records that we have in order for us to be able to adequately provide the records for consumption by the citizens. So our overall approach as government is that we need to be conscious of the key issues that surround, especially things like privacy, biasness, and transparency, which are obviously being taught as ethical consideration of AI. And as the government, we are planning on ensuring that AI development within Botswana is properly conducted in a manner that is bringing growth into the society. It's not being counterproductive. The algorithms, we know that depending on the type of information that we feed, that will then determine the type of solutions or the type of answers. If it is a predictive analysis, it will also prescribe that based on what you have been doing. And one of the just towards the end is that we are also thinking in terms of making sure that our systems are going to be open data compliant, so that as we move, we know that AI is it. And for all the big AI systems as we go out there, especially now this one going is that we know that the big like the ChatGPT, your Microsoft Copilots, they respond depending on what they are able to glean in terms of information. So we need to start now making our information accessible in a way through using open platforms that will make sure that in the context of the growth of AI, we are then represented, especially as Africans. I thought maybe I should just stop there in terms of for an ecosystem that will now allow us AI to be productive for us. We need to then contribute, especially in terms of making sure that we have data that is consistent with our culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Okono. That's very important. We have talked about data, credibility of the data that we need to have. But also touch on what you said, that the AI system navigates, they harvest data and information, and that leads to the issue of information integrity. Right? Now, here comes the journalist or journalism. Omar, what are the intersections of journalism and AI?
Thank you, Alamin. In fact, journalists globally, and especially in Africa, when the issue of artificial intelligence came up, it's something that has been challenging the quality of journalism. And in one way, and in a number of media houses in Africa, it was rendering journalists lazy. And we have always been complaining about this issue of journalists just taking press releases and statements that have been used were not published by government officials or politicians copy-pasting. But now when artificial intelligence has come, it has become like something that is challenging the integrity of journalism and also the quality of journalism. And that's why, of course, artificial intelligence has brought the idea of faster way of gathering news and information, automated fact-checking is easier for journalists, debunking false information in an easy way, but also artificial intelligence has also resulted, both in Africa and the rest of the world, a serious problem to eroding quality and investigative journalism. How? You could see that the newsrooms are becoming thinner and thinner because people are trying to use the artificial intelligence. And that has caused job losses in the media houses. And in Africa, we are using that in a way that even we don't know, in a massively in a way that we don't know. It seems that it is replacing the role of human journalists. And I'm using the word human journalists deliberately because the issue of artificial intelligence is being used as a way to do a journalism work day in, day out, in the place of human journalists. But what we see as well, and I take the point that our colleague from Botswana just said, that when you look at the artificial intelligence, most of the data that is uploaded online or digitally, or that ChatGPT or other platforms are having access, is a data mostly coming from Europe, North America, or even to a large extent in Asia Pacific, but in a very limited way in Africa. So, so artificial intelligence is somehow, reinforcing biases present in the data, because Africa is having a limited information. That is what the Botswana colleague is talking about. So that kind of biased data information is rendering the continent of Africa, its people and journalists, in a very disadvantageous position. So for us, what we see is, as a journalist, within the journalistic community, is artificial intelligence complements human journalists. It doesn't replace journalists. That has to be very clear. Because when you look at even the integrity of journalism, relies on human oversight. It has to be someone sitting at the desk, reviewing, editing, fact-checking, making sure everything is good. So that human oversight cannot be replaced whatsoever. And that is what the integrity and the quality, ethical, responsible journalism is dependent on. My sister here has been talking about elections. And we know what election happens. People throw all sorts of histories to each other. The ruling party, the opposition, they have agencies. And we know what happened in the Kenyan elections. When the company in the United Kingdom that was facilitated during Uhuru Kenyatta, and the way that it was using to manipulate facts and information in the Kenyan elections. But you need journalists who can fact check, who can challenge and say, look, no, we are spreading lies, we are spreading disinformation, and that human oversight is very important. So what I wanted to say is artificial intelligence can implement journalists, but it cannot replace journalists. And the integrity, quality, investigative journalism is heavily dependent on human journalists, and human journalists cannot be taken out. And we could see some of the media companies. We could see that when they are in this situation of a challenging environment, where they cannot pay journalists, where they cannot sustain the running costs of the media houses, they try to opt themselves to reduce the cost in the newsroom. But look at the more damage it's causing, because you are or even the integrity of your news media house. You are challenging your reputation, and more dangerously, because you are not serving the society. You are not discharging the noble responsibility that journalism is supposed to be, serving the public as a public good. More like Alamin you said, the question comes the integrity of the information. When the information doesn't have integrity, then we have almost, it's not only journalists, it's not only the news media organization, but the entire society.
Yes, so from what you said, it's not about the integrity of information. We are going back to ecosystems. When one part of the ecosystem is not functioning, it affects the rest of the parts. So let me get back to Professor Eric. What are we doing wrong, Professor? Why are we not having robust AI ecosystems in Africa? What are the bottlenecks and how, what are the key bottlenecks? Can you tell us where we are going wrong?
Great, thanks. Yeah, that's a big question, and I think it to some extent it connects with the issue with data sets and the biases that exist within the current data sets that are used, not only exist but also are produced and reproduced in the way in which these large language models that require these vast amounts of data to learn and make accurate predictions are underrepresenting African data and African realities in the way in which these training models are set up and done. I think it's very, very important, and it tells us over and over again that AI is contextual and it needs to be contextualized. Otherwise, it may not provide us with the solutions that we need. And I think that is a key issue in thinking about the support and the types of strategic actions that are needed for a resilient and adaptable and flexible and relevant AI ecosystem to emerge and to be supported. There is that element of the data sets. There is a skills gap in regards to the utilization of AI. So computing capacity and the skills force capacity are becoming increasingly important as the technology advances. So part of building, creating a resilient and dynamic AI ecosystem has to do with supplying the system with the necessary skills. That means trying and experimenting with new ways of developing the necessary skills at the speed that is needed. You don't want to develop skills now that will take 5 years to be available for firms, for government, for other stakeholders to utilize AI efficiently. You want them to be available as soon as possible, particularly because we're starting this race sort of already lagging. So we need to actually move faster than the rest of the world to be able to develop the skills that are necessary to see the AI ecosystem thrive. And that requires for us to think a little bit experimentally and differently on how do we gear our skills and education organizations, such as higher education universities, vocational training, and so on. How do we gear what we have and orient it towards a very clear and quick target of targeting this skills gap? There is a digital divide as well. Secondly, there's a digital divide. We know that mobile penetration and that connectivity has grown massively in recent years, but there's still a lot to do. There's a big gaps in access to electricity, in technological infrastructure. This means that if we don't address the digital divide, AI can very easily exacerbate inequalities and leave many behind. So a key action is addressing upfront this digital divide and addressing the skills gap that exists. And one can do that by being very strategic about thinking about partnerships and funding. African countries need to invest in this digital infrastructure and also the skills, but in collaboration with private sector to be able to support AI startups and the innovation hubs that exist in the continent. I think those partnerships with private sector and also across countries are essential. So thinking about regions, for instance, Southern Africa, East Africa, but at the Pan-African level as well, and leveraging on platforms that exist like the African Continental Free Trade Area and others. How do we leverage on those skeleton structures that help us support partnerships and collaborations in the space of trade, but also in the space of investment? So that is also a key action that can be taken up. The space of regulation and governance is essential. And we know very well that there is a catching up process. Technology is moving much faster than our capacity to regulate. And that means that if we don't develop our own regulatory frameworks that really protect citizens from potential misuses of AI, as well as preventing taking advantage of the opportunities that are lying in front of us, those biases and those inequalities that AI can transfer into society will materialize and will leave many behind. So the space of regulation is essential, but it's not only about coming up with new policies. Yes, we need new policies to regulate issues around data privacy and IP and so on and so forth, cybersecurity. We need a lot of new regulation that is not currently in place, but we also need a new way of doing policy. And let me emphasize this because I think it is very important. We are somehow in uncharted territory. The technology is moving so fast, and our understanding of what the potential damages, the potential opportunities are only unfolding in front of us. And we need to develop very agile ways of coming up with ways of identifying the spaces where regulation and policy is needed, but also responding quickly enough. And I think thinking about ways of adding this agility to the policy development and implementation space is essential. There is an experimental approach to policy, a participatory approach that requires co-creating policy solutions with different stakeholders. The concept of regulatory sandboxes, for instance, for safe testing of AI is something that can be tried in the African space. Thinking about ways in which we can come up with co-created, participatory, bottom-up ways of developing quickly identifying issues and coming up with regulation that allow us to target those spaces where AI needs to be either supported or the negative impacts can be mitigated. So I think flexibility and agility in the policy space needs to be added through experimentation and participatory approaches.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. I think Professor Erika also talked about the fact that innovation is always ahead of legislation. I think we also talked about that. So moving to the media in particular, what are the competencies and skills that needs to be filled, especially for the media in Southern Africa, to become more innovative, more vigilant, and ethical in harnessing generative AI?
Thank you very much. I think there is a general appreciation, as the co-factor highlighted, that less than 50% of the African society is online, which makes it quite a very challenging proposition. That's the first one. The second one is that if you go to the SDGs, more than 90% of those are African problems. and they are in their last decade before the 90% is attended to. If you go to the 7 pillars of the affirmation of the AU, which is in its first decade, the assessment, the 10-year assessment, shows that technology is yet to be integrated in a way that it could to collapse the borders and silos, so that we are better off as people participating using technology to solve this problem. It is within this context that our media finds itself located in such a complex web, where it has to attend to the telling of the story, expectation that it will tell the story, but with a limited support for it to tell the story. And we have seen that, as Omar highlighted, the newsrooms are increasingly thinner. And I was talking to one of the colleagues who are pushing AI within the newsrooms. And the irony was that no, AI will do away with the bulk of the persons. 10 people, the job trusted by 10 people, one person will be doing. And I could not come to terms with that irony of the feeling that this is a technology just having to do the dungeons of repetitive work. But as I said, with that charter that we developed, one of the first principles was to say there is need for co-creation of space of human beings and technology. The second one being that technology, as you said, is not an emotional tool in terms of AI. So how does the media guard against the unethical practices of generating information where the audiences believe that it is generated by human beings and it has come from a machine? Thirdly, how does the media utilize this platform to ensure that it calibrates its models to remain meaningful in an age where there is increasing fragmentation, there is increasing the broken nature of information ecosystems, the disorders, and how do you utilize these capabilities at a pace that makes you remain relevant for purpose? And fourthly and lastly, the bridge, the broken process between the trainer and the industry. The training institutions and the industry, there is this disjuncture that what is being trained is different from what is capable for use. We have yet a situation where we take students from institutions of higher learning to the workspace. And you ask them, so what do you want to do next? Want to be trained to know. Someone is coming from training and they come to work and they want to be trained. So this is the irony of that broken nature of the ecosystem that requires that agility that Prof spoke about. In terms of, we are in a serious deficiency in terms of AI capabilities to plug in the gaps in the industry so that we keep starting to move faster. And we want the skills that are less redundant. By the time you are getting the certificate, you are no longer fit for purpose. So once the skills on the go, how do we reimagine the purpose of building capacity to generate content that is credible in the age of AI with a skill set that continuously is plugging the gaps on the journalist with all rounder and can be able to relate with the capabilities of AI. And the last point, last one, is that AI is going to make other jobs redundant. And AI is going to create new jobs. Our ability to remain relevant in the media is to ensure that those we are going to lose will not be outdoing those who be created. So let's push forward the chain that will see us with a dividend within the media ecosystem, and that will strengthen our information as a public good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nashul, you were once a member of the Fourth Industrial Revolution Presidential Committee in Namibia. You have heard from the panelists here. There are too many issues that need to be addressed in Africa, but the question is how. So, having had the experience of being a member of the Fourth Industrial Revolution, Presidential Committee. What do you think are the critical areas that African countries need to have in place to create a resilient, dynamic and thriving AI sector?
Thank you, Gabe. In our fourth industrial revolution task force, I chaired the sub-task force on infrastructure, the national infrastructure review. Based on that, and also through my role as the member of the UNESCO Information for All Information for Development, we really realized that data and information infrastructure is missing. And that is very key. I think Prof. Bula has highlighted the lack of investment by private sector, by the public sector in particular, in holding those information. I was glad to hear the director from the ministry here in Botswana championing open data as a force on accessing that information and building it for systems that answers to our needs. I think many of our colleagues here really alluding to issues of systems that are untrustworthy. Right? Even from a journalistic point of view, if you have to ask your ChatGPT to give you specific information, they will give you information, if you're lucky, information that is 2 years old. If it's not 2 years old, it's information that is not contextualized, right? So there's a need for us to invest in local infrastructure. I think Tambani has mentioned the need for, even from a news perspective, for newsroom and technology, whether it is private sector or academia, to meet each other. I always believed that newsrooms in particular churn so much information, they hold so much information. Remember, every organization, institution is sending your press releases, a number of data that are generated by institutions. Is there a way that that kind of information can be developed into reliable AI systems and tools that serves local newsrooms in particular, right? That way, then you could rely on some information that is trustworthy. I think a number of days I came across a meme that says, what would we, right now everybody is building models. I think earlier this year we found one of the biggest AI developing companies was, I think it's a French company, was their shareholding was the highest above your Facebook, that's because they're building models, right? So is there a way that we can build our own models in Africa? Models that answers our needs from agriculture, from media, and really build those stronger ecosystems. And then when we build the policies, our policies also speaks directly to our needs. So I think infrastructure, once again, is our biggest issue. We are not investing as the continent in terms of infrastructures that we need to rely on. Looking into our hospitals, into many ministries, all the systems that we are hosting, whether it is our voters registrations, these are systems that we are buying elsewhere, right? We are not most of the time able to tabulate those information, verify those information, and particularly for election processes, that information needs to be trusted. The voters ought to know that systems that are holding this data is trustworthy and it can be trusted to ensure information integrity.
We hear quite a lot of challenges there. Now, Dr. Mukolis, do you have any lessons learned? I know if you should talk of food, just imagine you're actually in the kitchen, right there, on digital transformation. So I believe you have so many lessons learned. Do you have any lessons learned out there in terms of supporting digital transformation, innovation, and adopting artificial intelligence?
Thank you. I
believe like the panel here is, including the prof on there's quite a lot of information that we keep saying over and over and over again. One lesson that we all need to take to heart is that AI is here to stay. As such, it's important for us to position AI as a driving force for our economy and society. Let's, as much as we are aware of other things, let's make sure we use AI to catalyze our economic growth and to create social impact. The three key roles of AI that we can leverage on is that one, within the public sector transformations, as I said earlier on, we are looking ways in terms of how we can deploy AI to improve accessibility of information. I've talked about issues around language translations, but most importantly, there are different assistive technologies. Things that can include things like speech to text, text to speech, as well as image recognition solutions, which are the key things that we need to be able to produce and have our AI system helping us to actually give an impact that we need to know. And most importantly, the challenges that we are dealing with, there are issues around data privacy and security. These are things that we cannot take right. There are issues, Prof talked about the digital divide, in which if we are not careful, as the license is that AI can exacerbate the challenges of digital divide as well as skills mismatch. Because every day you look at the new careers that are coming, all of them are really hinged on understanding AI, including my colleagues from the media fraternity, in which now the journalists, for them to be able to be accepted or for them to survive within the newsrooms, they need to be able to navigate AI. So these challenges are some of the things that are there out there that we need to do. But most importantly, collaboration and partnership is key. And we need to build those at international level, at public and private partnership levels, so that we can be able to discuss. The doctor there talked about building super models that are able to do machine learning and multiple language modeling. Those are not cheap. They need to be financed both by national coffers as well as private sector engagement. So, in terms of me, it's a call for action that we need to be able to commit to information accessibility and we need to deploy AI to provide that. We need to invitation for dialogue. Let's dialogue on the key figures, especially in the regional as well as at continental level in terms of how do we position ourselves within this. These are, for me, in terms of digital transformation, are the main lessons that we are picking very, very quick, and like I said earlier on, they will keep going around and around through similar things. And this is one area where it's actually, it could create diversity in terms of world economies, but it's also an area where we can easily be able to catch up with the developing countries. Because AI, it can easily be developed. Earlier on last week, in another conference, I indicated that there's nothing that prohibits for us to build an AI that is trained with information from Botswana, but that AI is using computer power based in China or America. So let's use this and move forward.
Thank you so much for that. Now, we talked about lessons learned, and there are so many lessons learned in the video in relation to AI. Now, based on those lessons learned, how do you foresee the future of AI in the video?
AI strengthening quality journalism or even demolishing it first? So, what is your vision based on the current lessons learned?
Yes, like I said before, one of the challenges that AI has brought is how do we make sure the integrity of journalism. That issue of trying to take away the human oversight from journalism is eroding the quality and investigative journalism. So one of the things that I think the future, journalism working and journalists using artificial intelligence is how can we make sure that it adheres to ethical standards and do not perpetuate stereotypes or inaccuracies that we see in artificial intelligence? How do we make sure that in AI it is adhering to ethical standards? Because the critical thinking of journalists and judgment in terms of high quality journalism is something that the artificial intelligence is not providing. So how do we make sure that in the future the artificial intelligence is adhering to that? And that is where, like I said earlier, artificial intelligence can only complement journalists, but cannot replace journalists. It's a matter of complementing. It is not an helping and facilitating, but it's not a way like information, for example. There are challenges for us journalists to get information in Africa, to verify it. Some of our media houses do not have the financial capacity to review and get information in the US or in Europe or in Asia or, that the World Bank has been providing, some kind of information. But that can facilitate. But that role of human journalistic cannot be replaced. And for us, the challenge we have got is how do we make sure that the journalism AI is adhering to ethical standards.
Okay, thank you so much, Omar. Thank you so much, our eminent team of panelists. Very vibrant panel today. Do we have any questions online? I think our participants online have not even elected. Do you have any questions online?
Not for the moment.
Not for the moment. Maybe we can open up for questions in the room. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lani, and thank you very much also to our eminent panelists for their delivery. Now, my first question will go to Prof. Erika, and I want to know, in terms of legal, you talk a lot about regulatory frameworks. So I want to know, in terms of legal frameworks and policy development, what is your greatest fear with regards to constraints and challenges, most especially in line with cybersecurity, data protection, privacy, and most especially the safety of journalists? Now, my second question goes to sorry, I did not catch your name. You did not mention the issue about the elections. Now you were mentioning, or you said something concerning the training of media councils, and I'm sure that you are aware that in Africa we have different categories of media councils. There are some that are independent, and there are some that are actually controlled by government. Now, in terms of these trainings, especially with regards to the Francophone countries, where you have a high commission of individuals, which is actually controlled by the government, who who will actually hijack these forms of training. Is there any possibility or consideration from your side to also include journalist unions or associations within these countries with regards to this training in order to develop their skills in AI? And lastly, this is open for the panel. Who controls accessibility to information? Or is there a need to control accessibility to information? Thank you very much.
Yeah, maybe we can allow the panel to take those three questions. Then we go for another round of questions. In the meantime, please feel free to grab some refreshments from the table on the side there. We'll have a few drinks there. Maybe you're ready to open up your mouth. Go ahead. Maybe we can start with Professor, I think the first question was to Professor Mura. Yes, please go ahead.
Great. Thanks for that really good set of questions. All of them very pertinent and very difficult questions. You talked about, I think if I understood correctly, what you talked about, what are the biggest sort of fears or challenges that one may face in the space of the regulatory framework and what needs to happen there. I think perhaps, I mean, there are so many angles to that question and what, ways of answering it. But I think perhaps just to highlight a couple of points, perhaps one of personally, one of my biggest fears is this low evolution in the space of policy and regulation. For policy to really keep the pace of the technology development, which is unprecedented. We've never encountered a technological space where progress happens so quickly. We've gone through various industrial revolutions that have been driven by key technological developments in microprocessors and electricity and so on and so forth. These sort of like disruptive and radical technological changes that have really reshaped the way in which we produce things, the way in which we communicate, the way in which we sell and we buy, right? So it's this disrupted market. We've gone through that before, but it's just the pace of the speed of change is unprecedented. And perhaps one of my main concerns is that we don't have enough agility and speed in the way in which we are responding to the emerging challenges. And that creates spaces that are unregulated for a long period of time. And therefore, there is an opportunity for those sort of undesired outcomes to really grow in those spaces. So AI needs to be put at the service of addressing accelerated progress in the continent and addressing the key challenges of our time, which I think are inclusive development and environmental sustainability, issues around water, around energy, around, all of that. How do we put AI at the service of solving that? And if we leave it untreated and if we're not quick enough in responding to how do we utilize this tool for those specific purposes, it will not happen on its own. If we leave it unregulated and unaddressed from a policy perspective, the more pervasive and negative impacts are likely to sort of see a space where they can grow and they can reproduce inequalities and other negative impacts that we don't want to see. So I think the speed of the way in which we respond to this regulatory challenge is the main thing. Another key issue, I think, is part of the solution is creating and nurturing those partnerships across the different stakeholders. We need to bring in private sector, academia, civil society, government, very quickly creating platforms to answer key questions that rely on the input and the co-creation from all of these actors in society. We know that is the solution, but the problem is that we in many cases lack the social capital, the trust that is necessary for those partnerships to lead to those outcomes. How do we solve that? How do we address issues around trust to be able to have that policy agility and to have that speed of a response that is contextually relevant, that speaks to the issues of our time, that helps us find policy answers. So I think that is another one of my fears, that perhaps the problem, which is the slow response to the challenges, and the solution, which is the need for quick partnerships and platforms for co-creation, require trust, and we need to nurture that and find ways of ensuring that we are all on the same page and we are all pushing into the same direction to put AI at the service of African progress and accelerated progress and addressing the key issues of our time.
Okay, thank you so much. That's lovely. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. I think your question, your concerns rather were around the issues of government, that perhaps I should broaden the research to look at other modes of regulatory framework within the media scope. But I also want to understand, maybe in response to you, that at this point, the challenge with artificial intelligence might not necessarily be with government knowing or government control. Remember, I think the biggest challenges could be platforms that are creating silos of where conversations are taking place. Platforms that generate echo chambers where conversations take place, right? And to a certain extent, then they enhance or focus or create specific sentiment based on a number of people because they've got the algorithms that they create. And those are platforms that largely the media industry, but also largely the African ecosystem, so to say, have no access to, in a way that it is faster for them to respond and that they can give us data that is reliable at the time that we need it. But then also that calls in for ecosystem building. I think everyone on this panel has been asking for that. And really working through multi-stakeholderalism, because once we are all sitting there, government is sitting there, the media is sitting there, private sector, private and media, and public media is sitting together. Perhaps that provides an opportunity to produce regulations that answers transparently to everyone and produce information that is trustworthy. I might have not answered previously onto the question of where the challenges are in terms of AI. And the challenges really, apart from infrastructure and investment that I've indicated, the challenges are really a lot. I think regulation has been one of those that has been coming up through this panel, but also issues of skills. And I think these skills issues are also raised here, not only from the media, but largely in terms of dealing with AI. Maybe also as an alternative within the media landscape is really coming up with those sandboxes, whether they are regulatory, so to say, but sandboxes that enable specific communities, specific sector to contextualize the need or the use of artificial intelligence, right? Such as within the media. And really what this study was looking for was really just trying to find out who is doing what in the media regarding artificial intelligence. Because this is 2024, it is the year that so many elections is taking place, but it's also taking place in a world in Africa, or in a space or in a time in Africa where artificial intelligence tools have spread across and they are being used by opposition parties, as we have had. They're used by electoral bodies. They're used by everyone else. So who is really providing some sort of guidelines to say, hey, newsrooms, in terms of if you are using a specific tool to understand what is happening within a community or to map out violences within the community. This is what you should be looking at, right? This is some of the ways that you can measure or you can ensure transparency, responsibleness, and accountability, for instance. Okay.
Thank you so much. I think there was one question to the panel. I'm not sure who's going to take that. Thank you. Let me attempt that. Now, the question that I'll try to attempt is who controls accessibility to information? I think that question is a multifaceted question. In Botswana, we have the Data Protection Act of 2018, which outlines a number of different actors in terms of who are responsible with the very chain of data production, storing, as well as sharing that information. But within the context of today, earlier on we talked about information accessibility as an issue as to how do we create information so that we do not leave anybody behind in terms of that. So we realize that one of the key things is that in the process of mostly creating and storing information, there are things that we may start putting, which will immediately start eliminating some section of the population. So, in terms of asking that question, I think we need to ask it in a way that we don't make it as an academic question that points to somebody, but rather as a philosophical question that tries to address the overall thinking in terms of how we produce, consume, and distribute data. If we are producing, say for example, an information through the website, in which that information will not take into consideration that somebody could be colorblind, and then we highlight some key information through some specific colors. Immediately we have started now putting in unintended controls in terms of the information. And my colleague here talked about issues that I'm not that familiar with though, in terms of the Media Practitioners Act that talks about releasing information for the public. You know, again, those are some of the factors and issues that we can put in place to sort of control the accessibility of information. But within the context of AI, it's about us putting information solutions around AIs which will maximize accessibility of information, especially to the information owners, as the Act described mostly that we and me, we are the owners of information, especially that is contained by government. But as you realize, you find that our government is able to collect information from us, and then from there now they decide whether they can give it to me or not. But originally that is my information. So I think those are some of the areas at this panel that we need to elevate our thinking to in order to answer that question. I don't think I can have a straight answer as to exactly who, but in terms of how or what we need our actions, they can translate into ultimately controlling that information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mukami. Do you have any addition?
Yes.
Yeah, again, it comes back to the question of accessibility of information. When it comes to the demand from the media community and civil society and the citizens of unfettered access to information when it comes. But those who control information depends on the political systems, the technologies, and interests of those holding unregulated information. And that is what the point that our colleague from Botswana mentioned. Government is sometimes, they hold information that they collected from the public, but they even deny. Because of political interests and other overriding interests. But I think governments play, like he said, private companies' role, media organizations have a role to play, internet service providers, like I have seen a number of cases in Eastern Africa, in Ethiopia, in Sudan, in Somalia. The internet service providers also play a key role in terms of even suppressing information that will be readily available in the internet. So they, because of their own interests, because of the issues that they have. Educational institutions, that you have mentioned, international organizations, like UN agencies and multilateral institutions, or even SADC or the African Union, they play a very key role in terms of what information that is readily available to be accessed. So, in my view, it depends on the entities that are holding and providing information and the context that is reflected. For example, certain information is being suppressed, and you will see what you have when you make search in Google, it will not come on top because it has been suppressed. And that is now happening widely when it comes to the question of in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is effectively utilizing that because certain, if you, for example, Google human rights violations in Tigray, if, for example, if you Google it, it will not come on top of it. Because the Ethiopian government is using effective machinery that is, suppressing, searching machines that do not come up such sensitive human rights issue on top of it. So, yes, those who hold that information and those who don't regulate. But if you see that information in Kenya, for example, and you say, look, human rights atrocities or human rights situation in a particular country, because you are out of the space of that government, of that internet service provider, and you will see it coming on top of it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. You're really training me. You're talking of Ethiopian when you're flying Ethiopian Airlines. Okay, so do we have any questions, maybe before that? You have a question?
Okay.
Yes.
So I think my addition is that we spoke of the information ecosystem. Who controls it depends on how strong your ecosystem is. If it is strong, it's difficult for one set of power within this ecosystem to control it. If you go to the basics of information as a public good, built on state, we are spread in power among different actors, the companies, government, the communities, be it communities of interest online or offline. How much power should each have so that you distribute the power and so one doesn't have to have unchecked power. So who controls it, strengthen the ecosystems, and if you are going to the edge of the AI, to maintain the strength of the system, also have a higher appetite of conditioning your data so that you control the level of indigenous knowledge, active participation in the ecosystem. The banks and the telecoms companies did with the data sets, because they are the biggest holder of our data companies in Africa generally. And you see how they started playing around with chatbots and all sorts of things. They were using the data to feed it so that it can better respond to the target market. So who controls it is the nature of power and the strength of the ecosystem.
Well, it depends on who has the power. So, any questions on that?
Yes, we have one question. Maybe let me use the mic. So, Prof. Mbula can also hear me. So Tendai Masunda is asking, what is the best age to start teaching children about AI so that we can have a new AI literate generation?
What's the best age?
Yes.
To start teaching AI?
AI.
Yes. Children. Okay, we have two academicians. Actually, no. We have academicians.
Yes, teaching it.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle. Maybe Professor can compliment, but just go ahead.
All right. That's a very interesting question. Again, within the African setup where our education is not catching up on time. So maybe in addressing or providing a response based on our assessment for Namibia, for IR, we found out that at least the universities at that level were responding with relevant curricula related to data, datafication, for instance. I don't know, I think we have engaged here largely that we have issues of the digital divide. If we are thinking about educating a child in preschool about AI and robotics, which we are seeing anyway in many of the city centers, but also accessible at private cost, we are leaving largely everyone behind, right? A majority of the African communities are living out of the cities in rural areas. And again, issues of cost of devices, issues of cost of data to access the relevant curriculum. If I have to revert to the original questions, at what age? Maybe as soon as they're speaking, because these young people, we see them. They take our cell phones, they know. My 7-year-old son knows my phone much, much better than I do. But is that an ordinary child, African child, who lives in the rural areas, right? So many competing priorities. There's a need for transformation of education and evaluation of curricula, you know, so many things that we need to consider. I don't know if that answers the question. The question is really neither here or nor there. We know private sector is, again, teaching them as soon as they walk into their, or private schools are teaching them as soon as they walk into their doors, but we have majority of African children who do not know what a laptop is, what it looks like, and those are hindered by many of those challenges, costs, infrastructures, and so on.
Leave alone who don't know what the computer is, they don't even know what a mouse is. They think it's that anymore when it runs into the kitchen. Yes, Mr. Mokolo.
Just to add on to that, despite the digital divide that we have, I think the question as to at what age, I'm trying to look for a positive spin on it, saying that AI is now going ubiquitous. So we can no longer say this content or we discuss AI when this time comes. As you rightly said, for the tools, the gadgets that we are having, initially you realize that you used to have your computer, and then within your computer you can then install a chatbot that will bring the AI capability to life. But now, look at the devices that are coming out. They come with inbuilt AI in there. And what we perhaps need to think about is the issues around ethical issues, around issues of privacy. Those are the things that the human core components. I believe that is what we really need to be teaching our children, so that they grow up knowing that as much as we have this technology, the human element of it, where does it stop and where does it end? Because those lessons, obviously, they are societal lessons that our generation, the new generation, the digital natives, they grow up with them. And in terms of formalized AI
lessons or AI curriculum. I believe that's where we could perhaps start trying to figure out, let's say, maybe 8, 7, 8, 9. But then in terms of my son, he used to say, when he was 6 years old, he said he was playing against AI on the computer. I don't know, for me, we all knew that, when we are just playing a game, it's a game. But for them already, they know that you are playing against something. That is not really telling us that we need to move fast and we need to prepare the generation as soon as possible, so that they don't grow with the fear that we are, whereby AI was portrayed as being robots that overtakes civilization. Now AI, this nowadays is not the big robots. It is algorithms which sits behind everything that we are using. So we really need I think that question says, let's start, let's make them aware of the ethical things, of the privacy concerns that comes with the times. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we're having a very vibrant discussion, but we should be heading towards winding up for the next panel. Maybe we can take a question and then follow Jason. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Mine is not really a question, it's just to echo what the panel on how they answered the design online. I believe in this phrase that keeps the men in terms of AI, and that what we think of how I grew up, who would visit the low density of Zimbabwe, which is Borodale. I would visit my uncle there. They had a very big house. They had a library full of books. And here we are transitioning from the age of using books to the use of AI. And one of the things that my uncle would say to my mother is, you know what, don't worry about these books. They are very fascinated with how the books look. They are very big, the kids are carrying them to school. And we only had one textbook in my class. The one that the teacher only would have a textbook. And she would dictate the notes to us. But this one, they had all the books. And later on, they said, you know what, these books are available. There was a shop called Kingston. I'm sure those ones that we know, it was more like a hub of books. You would go there and buy them. They're very expensive. Started with buying them, the genuine cheap books, by bicycle. I'm sure you guys digest type of books. So this is still the way that we are transitioning from the books to AI. So the principles still needs to apply on how are we impacting this AI on kids. Catch them young, teach them. However, we need to guide the ethics of AI. I'm sure if you look at certain websites, social media applications like YouTube and so on, if you look at YouTube, my daughter watches Cocomelon, which is more like a way of teaching kids how to swim, know the animals and so on. There are a lot of things happening there around it. But if you look at it, you can see Cocomelon on YouTube platform, but there's also YouTube Kids, which is protecting these kids. So it's not really about the African culture and so on and so on. That's the reason why maybe Africa we are behind. Because in terms of AI, Europe is far ahead. Why? Because they are teaching these kids from as young as 3 or 3. My daughter can transition, can do a lot on my phone. She knows how to go to these YouTube kids. So we need really to look into that, on this transitioning from where we were and how we are going. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam. Thank you, Director of Students and everybody. Good afternoon. I want to choose your thoughts with regards to
the critical thinking, the analytical thinking, and the problem-solving skills of the learners in schools with regards to AI. What are your views with respect to those skills? Because the other day I came across one lady from one European country where they had been using ICT devices in schools, and our country was in the process of introducing the individualized ICT gadgets to the learners, which we have done since the post the outbreak of COVID. The Ministry of Education and Skills Development in Botswana has provided all the learners in the senior secondary schools with gadgets, laptops, one-to-one, every learner, every teacher. And now we are rolling out the second phase now, when we are reaching out to the junior secondary schools. And every teacher, every learner will be provided with a gadget, and then we roll out to the primary schools. And then I learned from this person that I met that in those countries where they have been using IT gadgets all their lives, you find that some of these learners now, their motor skills are not as good. So they need to learn to IT, and all of this. Researchers of mathematics will tell you that the computation skills are good because they rely so much on the computer, the calculators on the computers. They'll tell you, the language teacher will tell you that the spelling abilities not good because they have a spell check and everything else in the devices. So what are your thoughts with regards to critical thinking and thinking and creative thinking? Thank you.
So he's saying we are outsourcing our thinking to machines. Any responses? Is that the way we're moving to? Is it? We have a question here. Professor Eric, I want to say something.
Hi, thanks. This is a fascinating discussion, and I think there's so much to unpack here. I find this discussion around the issues around early education and the types of skills that we need to sort of impart on particularly on children to prepare them for the future. Particularly an AI-driven future. I find that fascinating, and I am not an education specialist, but I think what I wanted to share is that the evolving space of skills for the future and the literature that has, the studies that have emerged there are already pointing that there is going to be a diverse set of skills that extend beyond the technical skills and technical proficiency to be able to manage the space of AI and technology. Critical thinking, interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, adaptability are going to be crucial in an AI-driven future. These are the human capabilities that will bring to the table that need to really complement what technology has to offer. And for us to be able to have a human AI technology that sort of responds to our that we can manage for our own human development. And I think while technical skills are obviously essential, integrating these soft skills is very important to think about designing education systems and training programs that balance technical training with opportunities to develop these critical soft skills. And I think this last commentator was also making that point of the problem-solving skills that are necessary. So bringing that, ensuring that we're not blinded by only technical skills, but we ensure that our children still learn the critical sort of critical thinking and emotional intelligence and adaptability, which are often developed outside the space of technology is essential.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I think it's a tough question, and but every information is full of anxieties. Even when we evolved from still meeting, there were fears that we are losing too much control as human beings to things that we can control. And it is the reality that is facing us today. The horse has brought it out, and it's difficult to contain it today. And what we are dealing with around formulation of frameworks for ethical use, formulation of policies among others, responsibilities but not staffing innovation, issues that are cutting across the entire human existence, be it in health with the implications of patients, doctor right, no privacy, being a stake. But can you also trust technology to give you a prescription? These are complex issues. And the same with education. When I grew up, I would need 7 years of primary education to amass knowledge in a library. When the internet started popping up, there was strong fears that this will create a lesser human being. They must go through the process, go for the 7 years, and then you transition into the next 4 years again. 6 years again of amassing knowledge with the paper and pen. But things are changing. What you are seeing is a delicate balance of how human beings are going to coexist with technology. It's not only affecting the students in terms of what they are going to be accessing, but parenting itself. How are you going to parent the kids and interface with technology from early stages? Is this going also to hamper critical skills of parenting? This is convoluted everything, and so that's why we are pushing to say let's have at least the guidelines coming into force. Wherever you are using technology, what are your responsibilities? What are the responsibilities of those who are supplying technology and those who are using it? So that you create at least a level playing field. And what is the role of the government? And as I said, it is too insignificant if you are working from a country-to-country context. Can we have a bigger voice at African Union to bargain with the big tech, with the suppliers of technology, to bargain with the institutions that are going to be rolling out the interface with that very same technology? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. I think we've had a very vibrant discussion. Last contribution.
Sorry, I'm just driving down Tambani's point to say, if we want to think of AI regulations, maybe a framework from an AU level, we should recognize already now, 2024, that in all the 54 African countries, AI policies or framework has only been developed by 9 countries. And I leave it there.
That's a very good closing remark. Now, unfortunately, I think the conversation is exciting. But unfortunately, we have run out of time, and we still have one panel, so we have to wind up. But before we finish this panel, I'll ask my panelists to come up with at least 2 key points or recommendations before we wind up the session. Let's start with Professor Mula. What are the 2 recommendations or 2 points or 2 takeaways that we can take back home following this panel?
I would say, I mean, there's been a lot that has been discussed, so there's recommendations that can be a long list of recommendations that I think have emerged from the discussion. But I think my first one is that we need to be deliberate about putting AI at the service of our key developmental challenges and aspirations in the African continent. And being deliberate about that is essential. It will not happen by itself. if we leave it unattended, it will not take us to the future that we want. And the second one is to be experimental and flexible and agile in the space of policy. There's been sort of ideas on how that can be done, sandboxes, co-creation spaces, platforms, but being very strategic at how do we create pockets where with those collaborations and co-creation can take place, and being experimental.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. For me, the two main issues are ethical AI use as well as inclusive by design. It's important that I need to emphasize the importance of developing and deploying AI technologies in an ethical manner, ensuring transparency, accountability, and fairness. And it is also critical, especially for government departments, to ensure that inclusive comes in by design, aligned with information for all, so that we advocate for designing AI systems that are inclusive and cater for the diverse needs of our population. Those for me are the two key things that I believe from this conference I can take away. Thank you so much, Dr. Mukwege. Dr. Tabak.
Thank you very much. I think I will start with the issue of ethical use in terms of structure and frameworks. It's a key issue. But also African agents in dealing with the AI, specifically to attend to issues of biases and fairness in the use of this technology, which requires the AU agent skills. My third component will be around literacy and capacity building to strengthen the ecosystem of the AI in terms of its development and but also context. That AI is coming in the context of the SDGs. How does it remain relevant in solving human problems?
Thank you so much, Dr. Tabak. Omar?
Yeah, for me, I'll have two takeaways from these discussions. The first one is while we all recognize that the AI tools assist with efficiency, the integrity of journalism relies on human oversight. That is very key. Second is what colleagues have talked about, the biases in terms of data and information. We also need to ensure that artificial intelligence tools in journalism adhere to ethical standards and do not perpetuate stereotypes.
Thank you so much. Okay, Nashidon.
Thank you. I think key takeaways from here is trusted collaborations, really the multi-stakeholder process and enforcing that. This will ensure your accountability and transparency in information, ensuring that information is trusted and can be trusted, particularly during the electoral processes.
Thank you so much. And a round of applause for our brilliant panel. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Professor Mula, for joining us online. Well, we hope that you'll be here with us, but hopefully next time we'll be able to see you around. So once again, a round of applause. Thank you to you, our participants, both in situ as well as online. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
So now we go for the second panel, and I'd like to welcome Omar.
Okay. Thank you very much, colleagues. That was very interesting panel discussions. And now we go to the second panel, which I would like to invite the speakers. I want first to recognize my good comrade, Tim Joseph, the Deputy General Secretary of the IFJ, who has joined us. Welcome, Tim. So I'd like to invite the panelists, my colleague from Nairobi, Khalid, Dr. Jonathan, my friend from UNESCO, Alton.
The panelists have gone.
Of course. Lovely. And
no one is knowing. You have no one on
Patrick,
listening to you.
yeah. So, please come here. Please come here. That's right. Okay. Right. Thanks. This one will be again interactive, like the previous one, and we'll start with my friend from Nairobi. Please, we would like each of you to briefly introduce yourself, and we want to recognize you back home as well as here.
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Akara Kichuli, currently based in Nairobi, and I wear two hats. I teach data analytics at the UN College, and I also Africa lead for this good organization that deals with data and technology.
Yeah, Patrick. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Patrick Lefeto. I'm the candidate review for the Studies in the University of Botswana. Mostly my research is based on digital transformation and digitalization in Botswana. So, yeah, that's it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. My name is Lovely Teban Fundisi. I'm a lecturer at Africa University, which is a private university in Tare, the eastern side of Zimbabwe. I'm also a certified information system auditor, and a member of a board called Botswana Satellite audits. Aspiring co-founder of Women in AI for Zimbabwe. I'm also a founder of a cybersecurity club at Africa University called CyberGuard.
I'm Jonathan Nandari. I'm a public servant. I work in the government of Zimbabwe, in the Ministry of Information, Publicity and Broadcasting Services.
Hello everyone, my name is Alton Grizzle. I'm a program specialist in communication and information. I work for UNESCO headquarters in Paris, and if the moderator permits me, I'd like to steal a little bit of the first moderator's question about something that you do not know about me, just to add. My background is in education, technology, and media. You perhaps do not know that I'm from Jamaica, all right? But today I'm representing a very prestigious international organization, UNESCO, and I really want to recognize again and honor my colleague, Amin and Allegra for their excellent work in pulling this important discussion together. The final thing that you perhaps do not know about me is that I work for UNESCO, but I truly believe in international development. I believe in international development because I'm a product of development. Having grown up in poverty, having grown up in the inner city with drugs and guns and crying myself to sleep, because I had no food to eat. It was international development that helped me to pull pull myself out of that situation. And I believe Africa can identify with this reality. And so because of this, I'm very passionate about media information literacy and digital competencies, and how through media information literacy for all, we can unlock the minds of people around the world to transform their lives, to transform their families, to transform their nations, and in the end, to transform the world. That was a long one, but I wanted to get it in.
Great, that's great, Anton. And when you didn't take the video, so you're very passionate for Africa. Okay, good. Because all the years I've done, he has always been very passionate for us whenever we come and discuss. Gary, in Africa there are a lot of conflicts, crises, instabilities. The African Union is trying to promote something that is called the African solution to African problems. Now, artificial intelligence, is something that the African Union is dealing with, and African governments are dealing with. How can Africa use artificial intelligence in peace building, in promoting peace, or even in promoting peace in some difficult countries in the conflict?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Mark. I think a couple of things. One is with artificial intelligence showing up in the space, is also it comes with a lot of concerns that it can actually be used to trigger these conflicts and exacerbate what is already there. However, I'll give you an example of what we're doing currently in relation to this approach is the use of deliberative technologies to address conflicts that were too clear divides of the conflict, and how do we bring them together, especially when they're willing parties. So that's one side. So in this space, the idea is, are there willing parties to come to the table and have a peace process? In Sudan, we actually ran a deliberative process with the public caucus that was actually being run by the ex-former Prime Minister. And the deliberative technology, what it does, it raises questions to the public, and then the public are able to put out their concerns and say, this is what we want in the future of this country. And this is an ongoing conflict. And then the AI analyzes the data and comes back with the top priority that then can actually be discussed as a priority for the public. It is not a polling process, it is a deliberation process. Because if you think about deliberative democracy, we want people to have a discussion about a particular issue before they can even vote for it. Otherwise, people are voting without the real information, with misinformation, without a full understanding of what the impacts are. So with the deliberation process, people are able to say, I wanted this, but now that I know the impacts of it, I'm about to change my opinion. So deliberation technologies are one way to address conflicts, because right now we see social media is catalyzing a lot of the harms through misinformation, hate speech, and online harm. So beyond that, the AI itself is also looking at how processes and sort of projecting some of the processes outcomes before they even happen. So saying, if you take down this road, here are the probabilities that it will happen. Doesn't mean that it will, because we're also fully autonomous, we're all independent. I just say, here's a probability based on previous examples in your country, in the context of the region, and how public processes are. So I think there is quite a lot of that happening, and it is also done in Burkina, done in Niger. So these are processes, these are conflict countries, that is about, and we're actually done this process.
Thanks very much, Gary. This is quite very interesting how we can have deliberative discussions before we reach certain conclusions. And the artificial intelligence can be, people narrow down their priorities and the most deliberated priorities are coming on top. Mr. Jonathan, you're coming from the government side. The issues always that we see challenges to the truth, the real picture is increasing, and especially when it comes to the at the age of generative artificial intelligence. So how can we configure
the state and its information broadcasting business in the age of generative artificial intelligence.
So thank you very much for that question. But just to give a disclaimer that I will color from outside the boundaries. Because listening to the presentations given so far, they strike me as those that are from a consumer point of view, where people are using these tools. They are consuming the tools to develop themselves, like what others have said. But I'm coming from a government point of view, and my focus is on how these AIs and their generative nature are reconfiguring the state. The traditional setup of the state is that every country, its people, its population, its laws, and this country has got a government that is elected, which comes with a social contract with certain things to do. And now you have a technology that disrupts the boundaries. That means someone in Paris can still speak to the people who are in Botswana, authoritatively, on certain things. And sometimes the way the construct is given is different from the way the local government wants the people to consume the information. So there comes a little bit of a conflict in terms of cultural appropriation. And we know from where I sit that this is more than just the idea of consuming and using it to produce a story, using it to, focus on the future, because this is a generative technology which generates information which resembles, not exactly what it is, but it resembles, it's nearest to what it is. So the one is from a government point of view is the weaponization of such technologies. If we're talking about media warfare, for example, knowing that these big technology companies are in the global north, they're not in the global south. So what I'm saying here is when we join this conversation, let us not just join as consumers, but also to think critically on how we can join this conversation and be big players ourselves, which was mentioned by some speakers earlier here, that there are startups that need to be supported and the government need to support them. But the key point that I would want to drive here is data is the new frontier of wars. So the idea is not just the consumer approach that I've mentioned here. The idea is to gather data. So when I have data from you, I know more about you. Okay, and I know more about your population. And when I know more about your population and I use the generative algorithm, I'll be able to predict your behaviors. Okay? So when you go on, when you have your laptop and you are downloading this app and it's asking you your name, your surname, your village, your father, the color of your dog, where you do your shopping, and all those things you are putting in there. That is data that is being taken from you and it's going somewhere. I don't believe the world is so innocent. And I also believe that the road to hell was paved with good intention. And I'm speaking from a government point of view. So these are the things that we grapple with. How do we continue to have a narrative which is truthful without distortions, given the changing boundaries of the state, given the other interventions? And this is a big conversation.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Jonathan. And it's indeed very important that we're not just consumers, but people. And that is, again,
of issues that came up in the previous panel. The bias in terms of the data and information that is already in the artificial intelligence. And Africa is in a very advantageous position. It's good to have, a government perspective in this kind of conversation. But you have heard of Jonathan and his views about generative artificial intelligence. How important is media and information literacy in responding to this generative artificial intelligence? And we see how can we use that in South Africa, in Africa, where we know that there is latent bias, there is challenges in terms of technology, in terms of skills, in terms of capacity, and sometimes this is becoming facilitated to question of disinformation and disinformation.
Thank you so much for this question. I think the previous panel and in particularly the questions that were posed towards the end of the previous panel has laid the foundation for the response to the question that you have asked, Amar. This is very important. And the previous speaker spoke about the fact that we should not look at countries and citizens and people as just consumers of technology and information, but the term prosumers are also being used. That people are both producing data and they're also accessing data. But I think I want to go back to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to respond to this question. And Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and I don't know how many persons inside here can state what is Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Can I see a show of hands? You remember? Okay, I remind you. It says that all human beings are born free. They're equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reasoning and conscience, and they should draw on this reason and conscience to act towards each other in a spirit of brotherly kindness. Alright, we could say brother and sisterly kindness for the women who are in the room, alright, or we could say brotherly love or sisterly love. What I want us to zero in on in that Article 1 is that, one, we're born free, alright? What freedoms are taken away from us through technology, through AI and generative artificial and AI? What freedoms do we freely give up to artificial intelligence? We spoke about the big data just now, and that is about data becoming the new gold. It was called the new frontier, but it's the new gold. There's a data race. Experts are saying that the last bastion of our privacy has been breached. You know what is the last bastion of our privacy? It's our thoughts. And experts are saying that our thoughts are being breached by generative artificial intelligence because of its predictive power, because of its analytical power to mine opinions, to mine and to assess personal learning, and therefore to predict how we will think and what we will desire, the sort of information that we will want. We need media information literacy to address that issue of freedom, to empower citizens at all levels of society to understand that they have control over their freedoms and their rights. And the fact that they, citizens, are equal to the big powers and those who are driving artificial intelligence. So the power is not just with the digital platforms, but how do we empower citizens with the critical thinking competencies? Alright? With the understanding of how technology works. How do we empower citizens with the type of competencies to understand their rights on online, to advocate for those rights online. How do we empower citizens to use, not the access to information laws, access to information laws that are set up in close to 190, 135 countries around the world with access to information laws. And we're talking about information accessibility around generative AI. But the question is, are we educating our citizens to use access to information laws? Is that part of the strategy? Or are we allowing and leaving access to information laws for the elites and not for all citizens? Education then, through media information literacy, empowers citizens to know how to use these laws, to know how to protect their privacy. People do not understand that when they use the internet, they're giving away data. They don't understand this. We make them understand through media and information literacy. People do not understand that when they engage with AI, all right, that they're giving up a lot of freedom. I went to visit one of my friend's house, and he had an AI system in his house. And he has children, I have a son too, and they use it all the time. It's permanently on, and they said, Siri this, Siri that, Siri this, Siri this. I was petrified when I walked in. Being someone who's media information literate, being someone who has trained my son to be media information literate, and being that parents need to become media information literate, I was flabbergasted. I said to my friend, do you know what you're doing? He didn't understand at all the implications of having a microphone open in his home all the time and asking Siri everything because it's so easy. It's so easy to get the responses. And we no longer lose the ability to understand what is our information needs, what our information needs, how to access information, how to search for it, how to critically analyze information that we receive, to ask the right questions. Who produced it? For what reason? Who's going to be benefiting? All these journalistic questions. We need to train our citizens. The question that was asked earlier, at what age we should start teaching about AI? It should be at what age we should start teaching people and all children about media and information literacy, and embedding the technical skills around AI in the broader definition and model and framework around media and information literacy. And I want to end by saying media information literacy is it's an integrated set of information, digital, and media competencies. An integrated and interrelated set of information, media, and digital competencies. It's about giving citizens the understanding of the use of technology to development, to their personal life, to social life, to economic development, to elections. It's about helping them to understand their rights online and how to protect their privacy, how to spot disinformation and misinformation, and how to engage, importantly, critically with information, media, and digital technology to promote freedom of expression, access to information, gender equality, to promote peace, interreligious dialogue, and all these social challenges that are leading to a fragmented and a broken society. Media information literacy is really about unlocking the mind. It's a new form of literacy. I want to end on that point. Literacy as we know it, reading, writing, and arithmetic has been redefined. And we need new competencies for people to understand how to distinguish between facts and opinion, how to detect biases. We spoke about biases earlier. This is something that can be learned, but we're not teaching our people this, our children and our citizens this anymore. And UNESCO, we're advocating for media information literacy for all societies, linked to the frameworks to govern digital platforms, linked to policies around access to information, linked to youth empowerment, and other forms of national policy that media information literacy must do. Thank you. A long one, but I wanted to get it in there.
Thank you very much, Alton. And that is very clear that the role that media and information literacy is playing in terms of generative artificial intelligence, and how much information are we giving in, our data, our privacy, and more particularly for us as well journalists, is how do we use the MIL in terms of our day-to-day work, while the generative artificial intelligence is becoming cry. We have heard the government, we have heard UNESCO talking about generative artificial intelligence. And my question is, how is generative artificial intelligence reinventing the value of information, intellectual property rights, and information security? Because what Apple has explained, the microphone is on in that house. A lot of information is given, and then you're giving up your rights, your privacy, your data, your information.
Okay, thank you very much. I love the question because it's more on, I want to look at the positive side of generative AI. It's not everything that is great that is happening around generative AI. Allow me to say that it has redefined how we can access information. I would like to start by going before my contribution that I made about transitioning from books to internet, now generative AI anymore. Before books, there was some Greek philosopher called Socrates. Socrates was like 2,500 years ago, and he crashed the invention of books. If you go and look into the history of books, you're going to find this guy. Why? Because before the invention of textbooks in the libraries, the availability of textbooks, there was the issue of they would recite and transmit information and learn through poems. So this guy believed that new technology of textbooks, it is going to weaken on how we memorize information. Like the brain was going to be sunk, you don't need to remember anything. If you forget, you just refer to the textbook. So he was crushing this idea of invention in textbook. Now we have adopted textbooks. We are all now writers. If you look in Zimbabwe, for example, our regulators of education, they say that we don't need to buy books from anywhere. We need to invent our own books. We can be writers, we are all writers. We need to write our own books. Books that speaks to our culture as Zimbabweans. Books that speaks to our culture as Botswana. Books that speaks to us as the whole world or as Africans. Now we have transitioned from books, we now have generative AI. I gave you an example of my background where the only person who had a textbook in a class was the teacher. And that book, for you to access that book, was very expensive. The same book that was invented, the same book that was crashed by Socrates. Now it came, the same idea again of how expensive it is how expensive was internet. Thank God to COVID, the positive side of COVID, it made us all understand why we need the internet, because for us to access and to communicate, it was through the internet. I think from then we had an appreciation of why it is important to have internet. The moment that internet would be down, there's no electricity, we'd start to complain because we don't have access. Anyway, I'm talking about transitioning. Now we've got this generative AI. It has democratized how we access. There's now a new dynamic of how we access information. Information is available to everyone. People are crashing on critical thinking, and now we need to reinvent how, especially in class. Someone was asking a question of our students, they were not doing critical thinking. Right now I'm a lecturer. If you are to interview one of my students, they'll tell you that one slab will ask you a question, you won't find it on the internet.
So as lecturers, as teachers, as educators, we need to redefine how we ask questions to these students. Let's not make them access whatever we are asking. It has to be very difficult for them. Now, how do we now ask it? So the question will be like, so how do you ask those questions now? I've got a class full of students who are coming from different countries, and in their parent countries, there are problems which are available. So my understanding is that we need to utilize this, we need to decentralize this artificial intelligence. We put it back to their communities. Let it solve the problems that are available. The problems that are there, then you don't need to search for generative AI. Think of the problems that are happening. How can you solve these problems using artificial intelligence? Now they are having some innovative ideas. They are now doing some reinvention of whatever that was happening today. Let me call it the old style way of living. They are now trying to solve it using AI. However, now the algorithms they are available, but now I need them to integrate. So they are using this generative AI only a positive way. Right. And then on issues of intellectual property, the issues which are there at the moment, I think my previous panel, they rightly mentioned they hammered so much on the issues of data. You find that the issue on data and intellectual property, it is the use of training sets. We use data that is copyrighted. And if you look in America, for example, there are a lot of lawsuits which are being raised on the owners of this data, the ownership, and all those kind of things. They are raising issues on you have trained your algorithm using my information, and they are raising lawsuits. But are they being addressed? That would be the question. Why? Because if you look at the copyright law, what it simply states, in terms of the idea of expression dichotomy, it states that information, once you have reinvented, once you have created information, once you have available technology, you are not creating it for your own use. You are also creating for other people, so that we learn from it. We reinvent what you have done. So there needs to be a process of how do we make this information accessible to people. So when it comes to issues of intellectual property, they are mostly writing on the issue of copyright, data, and how do we solve this? It means that we need to make sure that before we train our models using copyrighted happening data, we need to make sure that this data licensed, seek permission. Those are the ethical issues and responsible AI that people need to tackle.
Yes, you said it's positive. It's something contributing to our society and it's democratizing the way we get information. But indeed, there are challenges. The artificial intelligence has brought challenges. What advice do you have? African governments, you have government officials sitting next to you, in addressing the challenges that the artificial intelligence is bringing when it comes to the question of intellectual property rights.
Okay, my submission to the government is that let's involve everyone when it comes to the creation of policies. You see, the thing with policies, it's all, at times where I come from in my background, you find a policy enacted, and then they vote later on the policy. It's not when we are having a data privacy policy, and here that they are involving different people. So my advice to the government is involvement. Let's involve everyone. Let's look at who is being impacted by artificial intelligence, who is being impacted by this generative AI. Let's talk to those people. Let's see how are they responding to it. Apart from that, to the government once more, let's try to impact and change how we think through education. It's possible. I'm sure we know that when you are introducing a textbook, for example, You do a Google of this. You walk around different cities. You want everyone to know what is that you have what you have written. So this the same applies to the artificial intelligence. If we are impacting it, if we are creating policies, regulations, making sure that there's responsible artificial intelligence, there's AI governance in it, that's all on government, isn't it? And the policies and so on. Let's involve everyone. That's my submission to that.
Okay, I'll come back to Dr. Jonathan because that is very interesting. Saying positive and it is all over society, everybody must be involved. Patrick, we are hearing from our sister from Zimbabwe, and she's taking from the positive route that the artificial intelligence is bringing. What are your views about the digital transformations and artificial intelligence for information accessibility in here in Botswana?
Thank you for the question. For me, I'll speak from the education background that she did. Digital transformation has made it easy for us as educators, especially during COVID-19 and after. So you know that during COVID-19, there was no physical contact. So we're told that we need to move online, we need to start teaching online. And to some people it was new, but for us who works with Canvas and those, it was not a new thing. So we moved online and it became easy. But immediately after COVID-19, people now didn't even want to come back to their offices because now they just wanted to be online. They just wanted to write notes, share online. Right? So which is positive. Then AI came on board. When AI came on board, it became a big monster on the education side. We just give a student assignment. Within 10 minutes of doing the assignment. They don't even read. They don't even go through to see if the information that is provided is correct. I remember there was one point I gave a student an assignment to assess the CSR for Botswana Commission. So Botswana Commission only sells beef. But when I was reading through the assignment, there was a mention of pork, chicken, mutton. Then I knew that, this is AI, it's generated by AI. So when I came to students and asked, did you even read what you submitted? They didn't have an idea. Then I said, we just generated this and gave it to us. But again, AI, it has some positives. For example, they give them background on what to talk about. For those who are using it intellectually, they will know that this, whatever I get from AI, will guide me to what I need to talk about. Not necessarily just to copy and paste. And remember, currently I believe across the universities, we are still developing policies to try to solve what AI has brought into our roster. So we cannot just say, okay, you have written information, you have just entered information from AI, so we are failing you. So we can't. So we have to assess and see indeed if the student went through this information. Then for digital transformation, for education, yes, it went well. We have those modules, we have ACES. But now, when we come to the government side, it became very, very tough because we should admit that Botswana, mostly we are there digitization, not digitalization. So we are still trying to take all those physical copies and put them online. And it's going to take us time to now transform when we put them on apps, whereby you have an artifact from the visa and you can look at it while you are in Zimbabwe, while you are in Namibia, while you are in Sudan. So immediately when we reach, maybe when we access an artifact, we only see the 2D part of it. So we are trying to move to that part of digitalization, where we put things that you can see an artifact in 3D. Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. And Dr. Jonathan, we're just been discussing about the digital transformation by two colleagues from the education sector, both Zimbabwe and Botswana. And my question here is, you coming from the government side, especially from government control the media or the broadcast media or state media,
do you think artificial intelligence will transform public broadcasting, street broadcasting, or it will destroy public broadcasting?
No, thank you for that. I think it will transform, it will aid, it will make things faster, easier, and smoother, like the educationists are telling us here. My only one is, making the students docile, which is the problem that you are going to face. That now that the kids can give you the information within 10 minutes, what I'm teaching, they are ahead of you. But I wanted to focus on the generative power of AI. My kid one day asked me for my phone, and they recorded me, they were just asking me nonsensical questions, and I was responding. I didn't know the mic was on. And then they said, we'll come back then after 10 minutes. When they came back after 10 minutes, the voice had changed. They removed my voice, they used a Trump's voice, and I was sounding like him. This is the generative power that I'm referring to, which resembles patterns. And this is where my focus was when I made that pitch. That if we look at the consumption side of things, very good. But if we focus on the political economy and also the sociology of news production, there are issues. Of course, things will be much simpler. We'll have less complicated human beings than before. We'll just look up the information and the dead doctors in there. Because they just go there and they know what you want, and when they say I've got a headache, yeah. But that's not my worry. My worry is how this information and how AI is going to be weaponized.
Yeah, thanks. And when it comes to that question, for example, one of the issues with artificial intelligence is underrepresentation of certain languages. For example, if your children were talking to you in English, it is easily accessible within artificial intelligence. But if your children were speaking to you in your national, local language, then it may not be even accessible. Yeah, it's marginalized, it's underrepresented. And that takes me to the question that I've asked earlier to Caleb, whereby artificial intelligence and the role it's playing in peace building, or peacekeeping, or efforts to impose peace and reconciliation and conflict to societies. And Caleb, other than languages that are underrepresented, forget about, if you're talking about, for example, Sudan, I'm not talking about Arabic language, which is available in artificial intelligence, but if the Nuns in Sudan are talking their own local language, if the Burkinabe talking their own local language, not French, what are the other challenges that the artificial intelligence is unable to deal with in terms of situations of conflict and crisis when it comes to peace building, that we must think about it and find a way how can artificial intelligence help, because in deliberative situations where people deliberate solutions and peacekeeping, how can we have reconciliations? Not necessarily they will speak English or French or Arabic. They will speak their own local languages. So how can
Thank you for that question. I think I'll answer that. I'd like to throw a spanner in the works in this conversation. But I think, so first of all, there are emerging tech companies that are showing up. So I don't know whether you've heard of Lelapa AI. Lelapa AI have actually mapped out, apart from Swahili, which is like quite big, right now, they've also mapped out Hausa, Igbo, they've mapped out Zulu, Xhosa. Is it Xhosa? I don't know how to pronounce the language. But they've mapped out on AI. So when you have deliberation, it doesn't even have to be on text alone. You can actually take a voice. So when you do, is a mic feedback. So, yeah. Yeah, so when you do your own AI, I mean, when you're submitting feedback, let's say on WhatsApp, it's actually taking that information and analyzing and saying majority of Xhosa people or Igbo people don't like this policy, or they like this policy, but they want this one thing tweaked, right? And maybe it's a policy to do with how people purchase weapons, for instance, because that is it's an issue in the conflict. So what I think is happening is Lelapa AI is a private company, okay? And I think previously in the last session when people were talking about regulation, and this is a big thing we're seeing in the market, regulation, when people think about, especially as a consumer, we think of restriction, okay? We don't think of, let's regulate our universities to put more resources on this particular technology and blow it up. Let's create a regulation that allows us to put more resources on this particular field so that if there is an issue on data security, data privacy, we can just go to that institution and ask them, can you advise us? Because right now, a lot of advice is foreign, by foreign entities that run these models, right? So I think with language, definitely, that is a big gap. So right now, a lot of the technologies are restricted to major languages. Why? Because they favor the contexts from which they were developed. So as a consumer, if I take it and expect it to do something that was not meant for my context, the best solution is then to recreate what I want, as opposed to telling them, can you fix for me? I want this, because then we are always at their mercy, and we are always at their biases. So every time there's a session I actually run on bias and technology, where, for instance, in Swahili, right? When you run on ChatGPT, on Gemini, and on Llama for Meta, when you say, for instance, let's give a statement, like the doctor went to the hospital and treated this child and met the nurses, and the nurses gave the child medication. What it will do, it defaults all the nurses to women. It assumes if you're a nurse, you're a woman. Why? That's the generic stereotype that all nurses are women. But the doctors, it gives them a multiplicity. So for Swahili speakers, this is the word yeye. Yeye is gender neutral. When I say yeye ni mwalimu, what I mean is that person is a teacher. I'm not saying he or she. But the system defaults and says if it's a nurse, equals woman. Okay? So that is just on that side of language. But I also just want to throw something interesting in this space, because I think when we think of deliberative technologies, we also need to understand that deliberative technologies are personal. They're not public. They're not broadcasted. What we should be worried about are the channels through which it gets out. And sometimes we focus a lot on the deliberative tech itself. We forget social media. Okay? Why? There are things called bots. The moment I can build a bot and disseminate a bot on a network of 1 million people, I've won, right? So it's no longer about artificial intelligence, because how do you police me to using a phone to creating a WhatsApp bot or a deliberative bot? So I think the ecosystem around the deliberative tech itself is something we should be worried about. If we have not gotten social media right, I doubt we'll get AI right. Because we cannot regulate AI and leave social media out in the ether, because it will always find a way to get to the public. The moment you see a deep fake, where do you see it? You don't see it on an AI itself. The AI will generate it, and that's it, until it goes to the public. And then we have wars about this president said this about these people, now they're fighting.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. And now that point to where you ended about the social media, and I want to ask you, Anton, what are the current gaps in media and information literacy in relation to artificial intelligence and information accessibility, both online and offline?
Okay, thanks again for this question. I think I want to reverse it a little bit. If we can be interactive in our debate, you asked what are the current gaps in media information literacy. And I want to suggest what are the current gaps in education system in responding to artificial intelligence. You know, what are the current gaps? Because one of the biggest gaps. Yes, we're going to come to the social media because I wanted to also speak to the question that Patrick raised, earlier, and also something that Lovely pointed out earlier about that generative artificial intelligence is not all bad, and this is of course so. UNESCO, we believe that generative artificial intelligence is more than just a tool. It is something that is transforming our political, our social, our personal, and economic life. And this is clear, we heard it from the first panel. We see the impact of generative artificial intelligence on education, on the health system, on access to information. UNESCO, we have developed competency frameworks for teachers and students on AI, all right? We have also developed guidelines for governments around the world to ensure the ethical deployment of AI in education systems, all right? But what we find missing in a lot of frameworks and regulatory frameworks around artificial intelligence is media and information literacy, is empowering the citizens, all citizens, with these type of competencies. And so for UNESCO, for example, recently, last year, February, we organized for the first time the Internet for Trust conference. And at that Internet for Trust conference, we were deliberating and discussing with stakeholder groups from all over the world on how to govern social media platforms. We have come out with what we're calling the guidelines for the governance of digital platform. But I want to come back to the subject matter that you asked, the question, what are the gaps? Because in those guidelines, we have integrated media information literacy as a key pillar that digital platforms themselves must be taking action in promoting media information literacy for all users of their platform. That they need to train their employees on media information literacy and also to train their product developers and to how they should design products, technological products on social media that will ensure people do not lose their freedom, do not get into the sort of situation of the echo chamber, design products where the proposition that AI are making to people and algorithms make to persons, those propositions are not based only on the search data that is collected on these persons, all right? But that the AI system should look at the context where this person lives and make other propositions to these persons. So we're looking at this area where what we're calling it really is media information literacy by design. Media information literacy by design. But it's not just by design where the social media platforms, all right, educate all users about media information literacy. When they come online, for example, when someone comes on a post and they click on a post, the post is going viral, and they're ready to share the post without even reading it. They just see that it has been shared many times. Social media platforms can develop systems that will prompt this user. Did you read? Do you want to read this post before you share it? Do you want to check the source of this post before you share it? These are type of tools that can be developed. WhatsApp, you know that right now WhatsApp has a policy. When a particular post is being shared many times, they reduce how many times you can share it, okay? Now, this is a little bit blind, but what about WhatsApp prompting users, all right? That did you check the source of this post before you share it? You share it. This is something that I do. My friends and family are afraid to send posts to me. Literally. They said, Alton is going to tell me to shut up, stop sharing this stupidity. Did you check this? What they're starting to do now, my friends and family, and I'm not just talking about persons who are not educated, because we think that media information literacy is only for persons who are not educated. I'm talking about lawyers, doctors, politicians, the type of things that they share on my social WhatsApp, and judges sharing stuff. Where did you get this from? What source is this? No, I'm an individual. This is anecdotal, all right? I'm using my media information literacy competencies because I'm an expert to educate my network. Can you imagine the power of social media doing that same thing? And can you imagine that power? Can you imagine the power if we start educating users of the internet in media information literacy to become peer educators? So that I'm not the only one that is doing it in my network, all right? But we have empowered so many persons in my network to the point where the conspiracy theory, the misinformation and disinformation is going viral. We can reverse that if we have more peer educators on media information literacy. The technology, AI, can help us to automate this. Generative AI can help us. But then we need a sort of investment. The sort of investment in AI that recognizes that AI is only as powerful as the minds of the citizens in my country are powerful. And if we look at that balance, and this is why UNESCO is driving education about AI, and with media information literacy being a central part of that if we empower the minds of citizens with media information literacy competencies, at the same time that we are investing in AI, then we'll have a better AI system that can impact on social life, that can impact on peace. Because we will see that when information comes to me about Muslims, and though I'm a Christian, I'm like, wait a minute, this is not true about Muslims. Don't share this. This is not something to share about Muslims. This is a stereotypical representation about Muslims. And then I can then say to persons who are in my network that, listen, this is erroneous and we cannot do this. I can propose data to them, sources of information to them. Alright? This is where we need to go. My friend here spoke about the assignments. If we start teaching people going back to critical thinking on media information literacy, they will know better how to use AI. And they will also learn through media information literacy the sources of information. What sources AI drew from? And are these credible sources? Can I trust these sources? Alright? Because we have the flip side where people are not trusting anything, which is also dangerous for democracy. If we start training people on media information literacy, with Socrates was the master of questions. Alright? Media information literacy is about asking the right questions as journalists ask the right questions. If we start training people, they will train the AI system. They will train the AI system in such a way by asking questions and prompting the AI system to start deliberating differently. So that the AI system itself will start asking some critical context questions that people train it to ask. But this is why media information literacy and digital competencies are so important responses to the development of generative artificial intelligence.
Thanks a lot, Arthur, and that explains a lot why this story is very important, especially coming from UNESCO and how Arthur and US specialized on this. And one of the things that very recently was very interesting. One of the big donors that provide funding was using artificial intelligence in evaluating projects from applicants. And my organization received from them a response which was not supposed that we should be receiving, but the artificial intelligence decided to send it to us. But when there was a human evaluation, that response we received was reversed. because the human evaluators found out that this was not the correct answer that we should be receiving. But the government was honest with us. They said the initial response you received from artificial intelligence that we have used it to evaluate. So we could see how it is when it comes to certain information that they were provided and how they have to respond. Patrick, in this kind of discussions and the role the education sector plays, what Anton said, what are the transformations required for the academia to play its rightful role in promoting digital transformation and artificial intelligence for information accessibility in a more accurate and factual manner? So, I said, while listening to the transformation that the artificial intelligence can play, and especially the use of media information and literacy, what are the transformations required for the academic, like you and our colleagues from Zimbabwe, to play its rightful role in promoting digital transformation and artificial intelligence for information accessibility?
Thank you for the question. I think as educators or what education can play in information sharing is to at least give and to close the skill gap. We need to close the skill gap and teach people how to use artificial intelligence the right way. We need to use it in the right way so that it can benefit us as both educators and learners. For example, for educators who are visually impaired, we can try to integrate artificial intelligence whereby there is a speak to text, whereby you upload a PDF file into an app, then that app can read it for you. And because remember, artificial intelligence it adapts. So as people who are visually impaired can teach it on how to read and understand. We keep feeding information so that when someone visually impaired start using it, now it can understand better. To kind of, not to totally block it out, give it a chance. So we have that speech to text and text to speech. I know text to, yes, text to speech is usually the easier way, but the one that says speech to text, when we dictate to the computer what to write, it becomes very hard because we pronounce different ways differently. So if we cannot allow AI to learn different accents, we can teach it on how to pronounce words, on how when to put a full stop, when you pause, when to put a comma, so that they understand that, okay, when I speak, I can actually pause without meaning that there's a comma there. So we can help us in the education system to feed the right information at the right time. Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. And indeed, you could see we have a very diverse panel from civil society to the education sector to the government to UNESCO. And now I wanted to open the floor for us to have questions and answers, please. If anybody has any comments or question, at least to the panelists. I see now, so in the interest of time, I wanted to ask my panelists to come up with their own interventions and presentations. What are the two main messages that they could, in brief, mention that they could capture from their presentations? So I'll start with that.
I think, wow, this is a question. So overall, I think there is space to analyze artificial intelligence as both positive and negative. Because I think there is, a lot of the panels I've seen, there is a leaning, I don't know whether it's intentional, there's a leaning towards AI and the harms. And this overshadows a lot of the amazing work that is ongoing.
cross-border. So I think even the regulation, when it lands, I think it needs to be balanced. So it's not over-registered. And then the second thing I would say is there are different actors who are working in this space. And a lot of them are more on civil society and the tech sector, who are trying different approaches. Like we saw in the first case, we are working within technology for conflict and deliberative processes, good governance processes. So how do you include more people to write good policies, good laws, good service delivery solutions that they can be part of? So I think uplifting some of these elements that are showing what's currently happening can also start to balance between what are the trade-offs between when you go on one side versus the other, and show people that when making decisions, don't just think of AI as the evil or AI as that in the good, but have this balanced approach.
So, yes, my recommendation, first of all, to government. Government, I think they need to involve a lot of youngsters. When I'm talking about youngsters, are people who are always on phones, people who are always playing games. The government should try to involve youngsters, young people, when they develop policies that are related to AI. Then, Ministry of Education. When they develop, currently, I know we have drafts of regulation that regulates AI. So currently, if a student writes AI, then you cannot prove it. You cannot fail it. But if the regulation was there, if you can suspect or if you can pick, because when AI writes for you, there's a pattern, right? It writes with a pattern. Let them involve people who research. They shouldn't read our research. We understand our research. They shouldn't base their recommendation on the research that we've made. They should involve us as researchers to actually play a role in those policy making. Then the other one is for us to expand, for the government to expand its digital infrastructure. Our approach, the government of Botswana, they recently installed Wi-Fi services across 61 villages. And wherever you go, where there's a primary school, where there's a hotel, where there's a clinic, there's a possibility of you accessing the internet, which is unlimited. So that one, it needs to be applauded. Now, we need to have regulation that, because they will be there for 2 hours. The youngsters, they will be on Facebook, they will be on Twitter, right? It's called X now. They will be on X, right? So let's find a way that, okay, during between this time and this time, you cannot access Facebook, you cannot access TikTok, you cannot access X. Let's have those in the infrastructure so that we know that if you see a youngster between this time and this time, they're actually researching on something that is beneficial to them. So let's also promote for universities across the globe. I was saying, let's embrace AI research and development. Okay. Let's appreciate it, let's accept it, and let's work with it. Okay. I think if we work with it, it will be better. Can I say the last one? Yeah. Okay. Enhancing digital literacy. People confuse digital literacy. They think if you are digital literate, it's where you can type on a computer, type on the phone, right? But are you doing it to benefit? Let's say, let me give you an example, Botswana for Tales. One of the assignments that I given out was telling Botswana for Tales, right? So then I realized that these students who are born from 2010, the new millennium students, I call them the new millennium, they do not know the folk tales. They know about Tom and Jerry, right? They know about this. But if you ask them about the Botswana folk tale, the original stories, they think really we lived through a season where there was a giant, right? They believe that. So, people who are already out there, let's record and tell the stories so that we can teach the youngsters about the stories that we live through. That these are just folk tales and this is a true story. Because believe it or not, maybe 20 or 30 years from now, when we tell you stories about COVID-19, you can put everything in there and say COVID-19 was a real giant. You see that symbol that represents COVID-19. You can tell them that we actually saw that. but because it's not recorded, the literacy part will drop. Thank you. Okay, excellent.
Okay, thank you very much. Allow me to start by talking and addressing some of the issues that were highlighted here. The first one was highlighted by UNESCO. I'm sure you are aware of the youth hackathons from UNESCO. They addressed your issue of deepfakes, fake news information, fake news, or they created what they call the truth shield. It's a tool that will be available on your browser. It analyzes the news, and then it also gives you some history of the source of the news. Is it been publishing wrong information or not? Quite innovative. Go and look into it. It might help you to analyze the types of sources. And then it comes also to issues of the prompts that you give to generative AI. Let's say generative AI is a tool that is trained on what you give it. I remember very well when ChatGPT was introduced, I would ask it general questions. For example, how to make a computer. It will give you a lot of information. How to kill a person. It will give you a lot of information when it was introduced. But later on, we find that even now, if you Google the question, if you ask it the question that I just asked right now, it's no longer giving me information. Why? Because it's training on the feedback that we are giving it. We would say, why are you giving me all this information on how to kill a person? Are you here to kill people? Those are the feedback that I would give it myself. And it was training on that. Now it's no longer giving any information which is very sensitive, which means that it's training on how we are, on the prompts that we are giving to it. Moreover, if you check on different types of generative AI, you find that there are settings on every application. Look for such settings, and some of the settings they include privacy. I'm coming from an audit point of view, whereby we are giving confidential information on our respective organizations and so on. And then when you ask it, or someone else ask questions pertaining, for example, African University, where I come from, you get that information, but it was fed. It was trained by our users in African University. So if you go there, there's a setting on generative AI that minimizes this risk that comes with confidentiality issues. So it has a setting whereby you can tell it to either keep your information or not. Well, the question is how true it is, and is it really like they will store this information? That's the question now. Because this is someone who's a developer. So we don't know if this is just to close our eyes and then we keep on giving information, thinking that it is not storing the information, the prompt that we are giving to it. Now going back to to your question, so on the two things that I wanted to talk about, mainly on issues of intellectual property, which is something which is really a lot when it comes to how these models are trained on. Let's try on those developers who are here and educators who are here. Issues to do with ownership of generative content. We need to make sure that there is, we are minimizing and we are reducing the infringement of the infringement risk, which is on issues to do with training data. Let us vet the data sets that we are using to train these models, so that we won't be found on the wrong side of artificial intelligence, on the wrong side of the law, on the wrong side of the copyright law. More so, on the positive side, like I mentioned, we are creating information, we are creating models. These models, they are here to help us. We are trying to make them better. I'm sure, like what I mentioned, this truth shield, it is looking on the negative side of artificial intelligence, whether we've got US elections, Namibia elections, I'm sure Botswana there are also elections. And we've seen some deepfakes, whereby you see a video of a politician who is speaking, something like that. But these algorithms, they are solving problems which are coming from artificial intelligence. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to put on here. It's more like on the research side. A policy is enacted to solve an issue. But later on, we analyze that policy, isn't it? So that's the same thing with the artificial intelligence. Once a model is invented, once a model has been created, let's look at on the negative side of it. And then we reinvent another algorithm that is going to solve the problem that is available. And so if you look at the life cycle of artificial intelligence, that's how we are going. We're talking about the negative side, isn't it? But there are already some generative AI solutions to solve the problem that we are talking about. So if you look at it that way, we are in a position to adopt it and look at the positive side of how generative AI can change the way that we live, we think, education, different sectors, health, and all. Thank you.
Yeah, so my point is that cheap things are expensive. Those who are in the academia, it will be unfortunate if you allow your students to use this as a drug. They will all be destroyed. I think what I would urge the university to do is to work on the engineering side, dismantle these things, and localize, so that we can solve local solutions, local problems. That's what universities are set up to do. Do not swallow everything, hook, line, and sinker. You will destroy us. Then the last point I want to make is power dynamics. In the old of our leaders in the past, colonialism and neo-colonialism of narratives. Watch out.
Wow. No, I think as UNESCO, I think I'm going to quickly say to Madam Lovely that UNESCO agrees completely that we should not focus on the negatives of AI, and we're doing a lot of work to focus on the positive sides of AI. As you know, UNESCO is a huge sector. You can see the 5 different cultures, sectors, in a youth organization, 5 different sectors on the board here. And there's a lot of positive work that we're doing, with AI, whether it's around climate change and environmental issues. There's a lot of work, indigenous communities. A lot of work we're doing, a lot of positive to AI. The thing about the positive use of technology, and coming to the recommendation, is that if we were to do a scientific research inside this room, all of us in here use only 5% of the power of this tool. Only 5% of the power of this tool. Alright? Lots of AI application, driven application on this tool, and if we consider AI as a mega systems of systems, then AI is so much more powerful than this phone. And so when we start deploying AI to the masses to ensure that digital transformation is people-centric, citizen-centric, we must empower the people. And we must empower them with media information literacy and digital competencies, let's call it that. Let's make it more inclusive, media information literacy and digital competencies, to understand how to use these tools positively. When you look at the research, the research is telling us that young people are using the internet for games, alright? Just to chat, just to tell where they're going and what they're eating. That's what they're using the internet for. Why? Because we have not trained them on media information literacy and digital competencies to understand how information and media and AI system affect their personal life, their social life, their economic life, and their political life. We need to train them. So the first recommendation is what UNESCO is calling media information literacy by design. I gave some example earlier from the context of using AI and using social media platforms so that they can play their role, using technology to train people. You talk about one of the applications that UNESCO has mobilized young people to develop, but we need a lot more of that. Media information by design goes beyond the technology, all right? It goes to the regulation, all right? So that the regulatory bodies, the media regulatory bodies, or the government regulatory bodies that regulates the technological platforms, that in their regulation of these platforms, they have regulation related to media information literacy. How are these digital platforms responding to empowering their users through media information literacy? There must be regulations in terms of education. Right now, media information literacy is at the margins of education, all right? And it needs to become a central part of education. We need media information literacy and digital competencies for all, and it requires policies. It requires investment of resources. No nation wants a population that is completely illiterate in terms of the traditional literacy, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And at the same time, we need a sort of investment in media information literacy and digital competency for all, for government to recognize that if you stay only with basic literacy, then in fact your nation, your people will be context illiterate when it comes to technology. This is how important media information literacy and digital competency is about. It's about libraries playing their role in promoting media information literacy when we talk about by design. That deep reading, and the gentleman there spoke about it earlier, deep reading is a skill that we need to go back to. People are losing that ability to read and to deep read. People do not realize that as we depend on the technologies, we are changing pathways in our minds. A book now becomes too much to read. We cannot read a book of 100 pages anymore. Why? Because we have trained our mind, which is malleable, our brain, and we have created in our brain everything that is short, 90 seconds, 3 minutes, 4 minutes long. We need an education system that reverses that and goes back to deep reading. My son, we did not expose him to technology until, let me put it correctly, we limited his time with technology until he was about 6 years old. Bill Gates is doing that. He walks around with bags of books, all right? He walks around with bags of books. We spoke about from books to AI. Lovely, I agree with you, but it's not so much from books to AI. It is AI reading millions of books. And so if we train our people to understand that, hey, the power of the AI is because the AI can process so many books, but you can engage better with it when you also read and train yourself to read. So we need that media information literacy by design at all levels of society, and not just in the classroom, but outside of the classroom. Media. And I want to end on this because we have 5 here, the African Federation of Journalists, that the media must be a part of media information literacy by design. Some of it is already happening on some major news networks. But we need to popularize this, we need it to become commonplace, where journalists, in creating their news and disseminating news, they're engaging with citizens through media information literacy and digital competencies, and partnering with citizens in different ways. And for the audience who here, we're going to be having a training and talking more about media information literacy in journalism. So that design aspect cuts across all sectors of society. And finally, the final recommendation is around transparency in generative artificial intelligence. All right? And it goes back to the journalists again. My wife and I were at home and we were talking, and I said to her, my wife, I think we should move the phone away because when you're talking private things, they're hearing you. You would not believe it. The The phone responded and said, no, I do not listen to you all the time. I'm telling you, I was talking to the phone, I was saying why we should not keep the phone there. So we need a whole government approach and an whole society approach to media and information literacy. We need to train the policymakers on media and information literacy. UNESCO has developed MOOCs, massively open online course for policymakers on media and information literacy and digital competencies in development. So we need to train the teachers, we need to train policymakers, we need to train government officials, all right? And we need a connected approach of policies across the entire society and media and information literacy.
Good, thank you very much, Alton. And I can tell you that for us as journalists, being the eyes, the ears, and the mouth of the public, and serving their interests, we have to be very actively involved in educating the citizens, because being the voice of the society and being educating them, informing them, entertaining them, then media information literacy is a key to journalists, and the game starts with them to understand what they must do to educate their own citizens or compatriots. Thank you very much. This is a very enriching discussions and very diverse panel. Can we give them please a round of applause? I think this is the end of the second panel, and it was really very interactive. A lot of issues have come up. I'm sure Allegra will have a lot of things to note down and as the outcome of the discussions. And this is especially good for us, journalists here, because we will have discussions for the next 3 days on tackling disinformation and disinformation, and most of the issues that you have today discussed and shed light will be key for our conversation. So I want to thank you most sincerely for this very engaging discussions. And we are ending our panel here. I have been advised that there is a dinner being served at the restaurant. So after here, we're all invited to go to the restaurant and to have the dinner there. Good evening.
We go and it's been a long, long day. Laptop, are you using it now? Okay, I'll come back to pick it. Let me direct the. I'll come for
And they're having the election in November. And we are driving something called we are tired of indirect elections. Now that the people there is direct election, it can happen. It can happen anywhere. So we are calling the Chinese retired Caribbean journalists. They say we need to indirect elections. It can happen. So we are trying to discuss where are you living?
No, this I talked to her. She said they are taking it. So I think we need to get that me and
Yeah, but we can they should have.
They charge and everything. It's even here.
Okay, Gloria, I'm going to take your laptop. I don't know where the IT person went. You like those ones? It's nice, huh? Maybe you know what? Let me get some water. Gloria, thank you so much.